Is this thing on? Welcome back to the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast. Before we get to today's special guest, I want to go on a few rants. You know what drives me crazy? People who go on rants and people who have unrinsed chai mugs that never get cleaned. There's always those people who constantly have loud music playing, whether it's in the car or while they take a shower, all the time. And then there's always those people that have conversations that they insist on recording for a podcast.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
You're talking to yourself?
Hey, are you ever going to have your wife on this podcast like you've been talking about for like forever?
Do you think anyone will actually want to listen to what your wife has to say?
Do you plan to change the introduction?
Are you sure you want to talk to Bethany about these topics? She'll probably disagree.
Your wife is coming on the show? Is she crazy?
Is Bethany some kind of expert or something?
Are you planning to use the same intro song?
What if your wife gets really mad and hates you over this?
Does mom even know you have a podcast?
Are you just doing this because you like to argue with Bethany?
Hey, you should have your wife on the show, so it's not just one more thing that you talk about doing, but never actually do.
Wouldn't it be better if you let your wife pick all the topics?
Stop trying to change Bethany's opinion. Just live your own life.
Dude, you know she is not going to agree. Just let it go.
Is your wife going to be on the show? Because if she's not, I'm bored already.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Fine.
How excited are you?
Can't you see it on my face?
I can, but the listeners can't. So that's unfortunate because you look really excited.
I don't want people to think that you forced me to do this and that I'm not supporting your podcast.
You don't want people to think that I forced you to do this?
Right.
I didn't really force you. I mean, you said it. You said it before. Both times, actually, you gave me the idea. Both times. The first time I was ever mentioned was you saying, but that was when you were saying you want to come on and you want to like interview me, which is still fine, by the way. I mean, you can ask me whatever you want today. It's fine, and I will answer as honestly as possible. Obviously, I don't want to share all my deep, dark secrets with the world, as I'm sure you don't. I'm actually kind of nervous to do this one. I don't know. I feel more nervous than normal, which is weird. I don't know. It's weird. It's kind of weird to be, because like we talk every day anyway. So.
Is it because you've never had royalty on your show before?
That's why. Yeah. That's exactly why. Yes.
Figures.
Although I've had some people that might consider themselves royalty. So. All right. Well, it's weird. All right. So I usually start with like, how do you know me? I mean, like, what's your earliest memory of me? Like, what do you?
My relationship to you?
Yeah, like, how do you know me? Like, how do we meet? What's our relationship to each other at this point?
Well, obviously, we're married now.
Yeah.
But, like, how did we meet?
Yeah. So your side of the story.
My earliest memory of you is sitting.
This is scary. Okay, go ahead.
Well, it's sitting against the wall at Boomers, formerly Camelot.
Mm-hmm. Was it Camelot then?
Yes.
When we were,
it was Camelot then. I believe probably it was the early 2000s when they changed to Boomers, but it was Camelot for a while. So it was Camelot, and I was sitting with a friend, and you and your friends were supposed to meet us there so we could all go hang out and do something. So.
But not at Camelot.
No.
We were just meeting there.
I think it was the lie we told our parents.
Right.
That we were going to go hang out at Camelot for the night and to come back and pick us up at a certain time. And we really, obviously, were being untruthful. And I was just along for the ride with my friend. I wasn't really looking to be dating anybody or hooking up with anybody or whatever.
You had no idea that you were about to meet your soulmate right there.
No, actually, what I met at that night was a bunch of arrogant guys.
Yeah.
A bunch of high school, just out of high school, really arrogant 18-year-old guys that were...
And me. Like, those were my friends, and then there was me.
No, you were one of them. You absolutely were one of them.
So, arrogant? Me?
All of you guys. You were just cocky and, just... Not my cup of tea.
Right.
So that was my first impression of you and the first time we met. And so, yeah, so I was there, mostly hung out with my friend.
Right.
Who was there.
I don't even remember what friends were there that night. Like, I remember, was that, because that was before.
I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Well, no, yeah, we don't need to say any names.
Drop,
but I mean, I know the one connection from me to all of you guys was Zach, because he was seeing one of your friends.
Correct.
But was that happening at that time? Was that how that started? I assume it must have been.
Yes.
Okay.
Probably. Like I said, that was my first introduction to you. I knew that she met Zach at the mall and pursued whatever their relationship was, whatever that.
Right.
And so.
Summertime fling kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess if you could even call it that. And then, and I think that was one of the times they were going to meet up and she just didn't want to go alone, or she needed somebody to be her excuse, which was, I'm going to go to Camelot with Bethany and this other friend. And I believe that other friend was only there because she had a car.
Oh, now I remember who it was.
Yeah.
Now I remember.
So I think it's because she had a car. So it was,
So I have a memory of that, what you just said. I remember we never even went into Boomers. We were just out by the gates. And then did we go to the beach?
Yeah, we drove to the beach.
Okay, and I have a memory of that. And then I have a memory of driving down the freeway, throwing stuff at your car.
Right.
How do we get to that point?
Well, there was lots of alcohol involved.
Okay.
So,
not by us, though, because our kids are probably going to listen to us, so
Not by me.
Yeah.
I was no part of any of that.
Right.
But I do know that for me, like I said, I was not interested in looking, like, I really didn't care that you guys were there. Like, normally, any teenage girl who got to hang out with older teenage guys would be, like, all excited about it, and I wasn't. I was actually in a really bad place in my life during that season of life.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because I remember only one thing. I don't remember you.
You remember the part where I said I was going to jump off the pier?
That's what I remember. Yeah. And it's funny because the next time we met, which we'll get to, but I mean, that was the first time I ever saw you and was like, wow, she's cute.
Yeah. But
I don't remember that at all from the Boomers thing. I just remember being with my friends and then whatever the other girls that were involved were or whatever. But that's the only thing I remember about you is talking about jumping off the pier. Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think I was serious. I think that was definitely like teenage drama, but I think it was more, obviously, my mind, where I was in my life and everything, I was going on with a lot of stuff with my sister and my parents and just, like, I don't know, like all teenagers, I had like a million things. And so in that moment, I just was being dumb and decided that jumping off the pier was the greatest idea in the world. So, but also being, 15, like you're just drama. You say things for attention and obviously it worked. I got your attention. Maybe the wrong
that's
kind
the
of
one thing I remember.
A lasting impression. So.
But I definitely don't remember leaving that night going, oh man, that girl was going to jump off the pier. I think there's something there.
Yeah, no, I don't think you were really like, you weren't really looking for that either. Like you were freshly out of a relationship and you were just there you wanted to just have fun with your guy friends.
Right,
and honestly, I think my mutual friend of ours, she, was probably just an annoyance to you because you wanted to have a summer with your friends. Right. With your guy friends and be free of girls and all their drama. So then fast forward what seems like a long time, like it feels like a longer gap, but it probably was a couple of days.
Was it really? Is that all?
Because
it does feel like a long time.
I mean, so I was gone that summer for most of the month of July. And so it would have been after that I think that I met you, because I don't think, unless that was before, but I don't think I
You think the Boomers was after the July?
Boomers, so it had to have been early August, and by the end of August, that's when you and I had, at that point, had already decided that we were going to stay, like, be an official whatever.
Be an item.
Yeah, that was the night I asked you to be my boyfriend.
Yeah. And I said yes, too, by the way.
You did say yes.
I said yes.
And so that's always just kind of been the date that we've sort of celebrated as our anniversary.
Right.
So I think...
was that at the park?
That was at the park,
in Tacoma. Okay, but that wasn't the second time that we met. No, so that was fast forward. So somewhere in that gap of like the end of July to the end of August, so it was only a month. So there was some kind of gap of probably a week or two, maybe. But then, yes, this friend invited me to go to this party. And by then I had settled back in after being back from
being out of state and, kind of just started to settle in. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I'll go to this party. And she said, for those who haven't heard the story, she says, there's this one guy named Ryan, and I'm going to hook up with him tonight. So there's going to be tons of guys there, and you can have any guy you want. You can go with any guy you want, except Ryan, because my goal tonight is to hook up with Ryan. Like, that was her plan. She had an agenda.
Which I knew nothing about this agenda, by the way.
She had an agenda, and his name was Ryan, and she told me he was the only one off limits. So I got to this party. Well, actually, first Ryan picks us up with his friend. We meet at the Jack in the Box around the street because, again, we did not tell our parents we were going to a party with 18-year-old boys. We said we were going to do. I don't even know how in the world we ended up there, but we got dropped off at a Jack in the Box in Santa Maria, and got picked up. And the very first words. So it's my first memory of actually you speaking to me. Your first words to me were, "I just bicked my head. Do you want to feel it?" And you leaned your head from the front seat to the back so that we could all rub your freshly shaved head. Hey, and so
that's the best pickup line in the world. I'm married to you all these years later.
Yes, it worked. So,
So young men listening to this, if you ever want to use that, I'll give it to you free of charge.
Yeah. So, and I'll say, and to all the young women out there listening to this, if a boy asks you to rub his freshly shaved head, don't do it. So then we went to this party, and we, so again, like, I knew this guy Ryan that just picked me up in a car. He's off limits. So we go to this party, and we're hanging out, and this guy Ryan keeps following me around, and we're hanging out, and
I don't following. I mean, following around is
you
kind
kept appearing in whatever room I went into, and so at some point I'm sitting, I'm sitting, and you kept inching closer. We were probably 6 feet apart. The next thing I know, we were 5 feet apart, and you kept coming closer and closer, and you just wanted to be like a magnet.
I've always been a magnet to beauty. So I mean,
So that
can't blame
was
me there.
And I think there was kind of just a spark. I mean, I think I liked the attention. It did definitely cause a rift with my friendship because the one thing I was told not to touch, and I touched, right? The original sin.
Yeah.
So, so then after that, you gave me your pager number.
Yeah, I did.
We're so old school.
Yep.
And I think we even had our first kiss that night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the parking lot before I left.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
By moonlight.
By moon was very romantic.
Very romantic. Here's my pager number. So that's the story. That's our origin story.
Yeah.
Our not great start, and then our kind of our true connection, which feels like it really does feel like it was this long period of time, but within a couple of weeks, you started coming to see me all the time. You come drive up to see me
for the 6 weeks that you were still here in town.
Well, it was. Yeah, because we moved by the first week of October. So it really was a very, very fast and deep relationship. Well, as deep as high school. But it was pretty, we spent a lot of time together. Right. And then found out we were going to be moving. And you and I had decided at that time that, 15 and 18 was not the time to be having some long distance relationship. We both just wanted to be able to be young, and we said our goodbyes that night before I moved, and then that was supposed to be the end of that.
That was it.
And then
game over.
First payphone I got to, I tried to call you because I had to tell you how much I missed you already, and then found out that you were out playing tennis with Danny. Yeah. And I was so mad when I found that. I said, he doesn't even care. Yeah. He's supposed to be at home.
Weeping, sobbing my eyes out.
And you weren't. You were out playing tennis. And I was like, well, I'm sitting here feeling all the sadness, and he doesn't feel that way. So I was a little off put by that.
Well, if it's any consolation, I don't know if I've ever even told you this.
Yes, later I found out you were actually throwing up because you were so upset.
Yeah.
And so, I remember.
I couldn't even play tennis.
Yeah.
I couldn't even do it. I had this pit in my stomach. I felt like someone killed my dog or something in front of me. I don't know why. It was weird. I mean, I know why now, of course, because it was meant to be, obviously, but at the time I couldn't figure it out.
So we just kept talking on the phone, and I think you were maybe within 2 weeks, You were on a train to come down and visit.
Was a train was the first? No, I feel like
it was a train the first time.
You're right.
I remember in
your
my
mom
mind,
picked me up. Yeah.
I had this idea, like in the movies where they run in slow motion and like, and it was nothing like that.
Oh, it was just like that.
Yeah, it was at the train station in Oceanside. We were surrounded by homeless people and picked you up on the wrong side of the tracks, literally, because you had to go on the stair thing to get to the other side of the tracks. And so I'm waiting on one side, and you actually got off the train on the other side, and we were trying to find you. And this is before cell phones were in everybody's hands, so it's like you really had to know somebody was coming. And it was
it's so funny. So I don't remember most of that stuff you're saying about that. The one thing I remember about that particular trip is that you and your mom picked me up. I can't remember if any of your siblings were there. I imagine they probably were, because your dad was probably working, right?
No, because it was nighttime. It was late at night.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I remember being picked up, and I remember we went to Taco Bell on the way back to your parents' house.
Yeah.
At the drive-thru. We went to the drive-thru and the Ramona Taco Bell.
That's funny. So that's what you remember.
Yeah. I remember the food part.
I remember Taco Bell. Yeah. I remember the romantic feelings.
Right. No, you said you remember homeless people. And
I remember it was not the storybook image I had kind of like painted, and that movie train station reunited. Whatever.
Well, that's good though. That's good that we could smash that from the beginning, because those expectations never materialized anyway. So might as well get that out of the way early.
So, anyways, so that's how we met. That's
okay.
We just
all right.
That was October 1996.
Yep. I mean, I don't know about the month, but I
know the month because that trip you were there for that was my birthday week. Okay. That was part of what you came down for, so you could spend my 16th birthday with me.
Okay.
And is that crazy to think that we have a daughter who just turned 16?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's crazy to me because I went through the same emotions with our oldest daughter when she was all the ages I was when I was hitting all these milestones with you.
Yeah.
And so I think it's I don't know. It's just really eye-opening, I guess, to think that, not that I think that they will marry someone they know just because I happened to marry the guy I met, when I was 15, but just think that it's possible, or where I was in my life, like, and all of the drama I was having going on in my teenage life.
Yeah.
And just to think that, like, I look at them and I think, oh, you're so lucky. You have it so easy. You really do, because I know they feel sheltered. I know they go through seasons of feeling like, I just wish I could be like normal teenagers. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, obviously our kids were raised much differently than we were.
Yeah.
Our parents weren't believers really. I mean, they had their own kind of spiritual beliefs and stuff, but I don't think either one of us really grew up in a very strict, religious of any form, kind of thing. So,
but I think too, we grew up as part of the latchkey generation where our parents worked, and we spent a lot. We were raised by, Disney Channel and whatever. Like, you came home from, like, they just expect you walked home from school.
Yeah.
Nobody. There was no line of pickup parents because everybody just walked home or took the bus home from school. Mm-hmm. You let yourself in. You made yourself your microwave snacks.
Tina's burritos.
And then you just hung out until your parents got home. Mm-hmm. And in my house, with my mom working and there being 6 kids, I mean, between my older sister and I, we would we even be responsible for dinner most of the time. Like we picked up our siblings from school. Well, she wasn't there at the time. That's a whole other story.
So you're the second of 6.
Yes.
And you have one older sibling who at one point ran away.
Yes. So during the time that my family moved to San Diego, she was not living with us at the time. She had run away from home. And so we were, so we didn't really know.
So you kind of took over kind of a lot of the mothering duties.
Yeah. So I would have to make sure that I met my siblings after school so I could walk with them back to the house and just, really, it's not like I was taking care of them. I was just the responsible person. So
that's part of why I nabbed you when I did, because I knew, I was like, okay, she's gonna be prime mother material.
She knows how to take care of a household.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
She knows how to be in the kitchen, cooking and cleaning and stuff. See, unfortunately, the listeners can't see the eye rolls.
I'm pretty sure they can hear the eye roll.
Oh my gosh. So, All right, so then just to kind of fast forward, just so you know, then it was about 2 years you lived down there, and I would just go visit every once in a while. Ended up getting pregnant with our first when you were 17.
I was 17, yeah.
I was 19, I believe. And then by the time she was, then you moved back here to this area, and we lived with my parents for the first 2 years of Alora's life?
Yeah.
Maybe?
About.
Because I think you were 18 and I was 20 when she was born. So, yeah. And then we've been here ever since.
Yep.
Quite a ride, you know. And it's been all smooth sailing and nothing but roses and you know, birds chirping ever since.
I'd say by roses, you mean full of thorns?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It. You know. But I mean, so that's one of the things that I know, and I know people don't mean anything bad by this, because you and I have talked about this before. But I've had people say things like, "Oh, you know, you have such a wonderful family. Everything seems so perfect, and you know, everything just seems so great over there all the time." And it's like, obviously, you know, you and I live it. You know that's not true. Obviously, I'm sure there's plenty of people that have things way, way worse than we do. And I'm not saying we have things worse anyway, but we're also not like the ideal, perfect, never argue, never always see eye to eye kind of thing, right? So, I mean, obviously through this, some of that's going to come out, I'm sure, you know, because I don't think you're going to agree with everything that I have to say. I would hope not, anyway.
Yeah.
Well, because I know if you do, you're lying. So I hope you're open and honest, and you just say, no, I disagree, and here's why, you know. So, okay, well, I'm sure we'll get into more of that too, some of the past and stuff. But so I usually jump into music first. You're one of your favorite topics. I know we've talked before and recently, and you kind of feel like you used to be more of a music person than you are now.
Yes.
So, I mean, first let's go back. Let's just kind of, you tell me about that, and then I'm also going to want to talk about why you think that is, why you think now you're not as much into it, but. So yeah, just kind of go back, like, earliest that you can remember this song. I like this band. I like this singer.
I don't know. I have a few songs that like have like kind of imprinted a memory. So I don't really remember like, oh, my parents always listen to this album all the time, or I remember the first time, because you know, some people like, I remember the first time I heard whatever.
Yeah.
I don't really, but like, there's an Elton John song, Sacrifice.
Oh, no way.
What?
That's one of mine too. Did you know that?
Well, yeah, because I've told you this.
Oh,
before.
okay.
I've told you this.
Okay, I forgot.
This is going to be really fun because I'm going to tell you all these stories, and you're going to.
It's going to be brand new for me.
It's going to be new information to you because you forget everything I tell you.
Not everything.
A lot.
I forget some stuff.
So yeah, so we were at a ski lodge on Mount Hood in Portland, Oregon.
Okay, I remember this part of the story.
And I remember my parents were off skiing, and I don't remember who I was with. Maybe my mom might have been in there with us, but I remember being in the ski lodge, and it was one of those. There was a staircase that went up with this huge floor-to-ceiling glass window, and it was cool because the snowfall. So the snow bank was up against the glass, and it was like really, really high. And outside of that, the window, there was kids digging snow tunnels, and so sometimes they would dig down, and you'd actually see the tunnel. They'd come up to the glass and dig. So you see, it was like watching hamsters or something, but it was kids.
Was there any danger of the snow?
I'm sure
caving
there was.
in?
I'm sure there was.
Of course, you know me. I always think worst case.
Yeah, no, but so I had this memory of I was probably 5 or 6. I wasn't big enough to like go out and do skiing. I think I tried borrowing someone's skis and going down a 3-foot slope.
Did you have those little shoes that look like tennis rackets?
I borrowed somebody's. Oh no. That was snowshoeing. That's later in life. I did that in junior high.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so anyways, just having hot cocoa and being in this like snow lodge. So that was John Sacrifice. That was playing, and I think that was playing. But for some reason, every time I hear that song, I go back there. So I go, okay, obviously that must be what was playing because it's just triggering that memory. And they had those like, what are those things called with the metal balls, and they follow the track like a Rube Goldberg machine.
The ones that go.
No. That's a big track where the ball goes up to the top and then it follows the thing down.
Like the museum we were at that had those. Where was that? Was that? Santa Barbara?
Moxie, yeah.
Yeah, where they had the huge one with the ball. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So they had one of those in the lodge?
Yeah, and I remember I loved to just drink my hot chocolate and watch that thing, and I could do that for hours.
So the song was playing in the lodge?
Yeah.
That you remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
So for whatever reason, that's the only song I remember, and that's where it puts me. So, I would say that's probably one of my earliest, like, song memories.
But it's funny because that song, a lot of people, when I talk to people about Elton John, that's not one of the first songs that comes up because obviously people remember him more for the earlier, Crocodile Rock and some of that stuff. What's the Princess Diana song, Candle in the Wind, that kind of stuff. But for me, the earliest song I can remember ever hearing from Elton John, first time I remember even hearing his name, was that song because my mom had that cassette tape. Just Sleeping with the Past, I think was the name of the album, and she had the tape in the car, and she loved that song. And so then I just kind of grew up listening to it and loving that song too. And then later in life, I went and listened to, obviously I started to hear other stuff. Oh, this was him too. Oh, that was him. And maybe I even heard a song and I was like, oh, I know that song just because I'd heard it, but I didn't realize, I didn't put the two and two together that it was him. So it's just kind of funny how of all songs, that's the one that you connect with too. Because whenever I hear it, I get emotional not because of a ski trip, but because of more, it reminds me of my mom, and it specifically reminds me of being a little kid in my mom's car. It's like it's nostalgic. So
yeah. So let's see, another random song, super random, and I couldn't even tell you. Maybe it was Paper Lace or something like that. The Night Chicago Died.
You got me.
You ever heard that one? The Night Chicago Died. Something, and my mama cried.
I don't know.
So, yeah.
It sounds vaguely familiar.
So there was, for some reason, that song was one that Mariah and I think we used to choreograph dances to songs and do them like for our parents.
Nice.
And like our Jehovah Witness group of families. I don't know what you call it. Our pod.
Your cult. Your the family. Charles Manson called his people the family.
No, they were just families. They were families no different than the families that we just connect with on a regular basis. We all have kids the same age, and they all just kind of group together. We had a group like that.
Your commune. How's that?
Oh,
does that work?
It still sounds way too culty.
What did you say? Pod?
I said pod.
That's like fish, isn't that a pod? No, dolphins is a pod of dolphins.
I don't know.
Anyway, yeah.
The families that we kind of grew up with during the time we lived in Portland, and so there was that song. The Night Chicago Died, which I later learned was about the Chicago fires. So I didn't know that until I was older.
The ones I think were started by a cow, or is that something else?
No, that's the ones I think were started by a cow.
Right.
And then there was Another Day in Paradise by Phil Collins.
See, this is really cool.
Yeah. So
we were connected before we were connected.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
And it sounds dumb and cliche, but it's kind of true. It's like these obscure songs that were kind of...
But they're just funny because I don't remember my parents like owning a cassette tape.
Okay.
I feel like maybe The Night Chicago Died was on a mixtape of some kind. And it was just one we really... I don't really remember why or how that came into our knowledge of that song, but I remember that song.
But your dad was huge into music.
He was, but like that's different stuff. That's stuff when I can really sit there and say, well, I associate the Doors. I will always think of my dad. Eric Clapton. I will always think of my dad. Like I will never not hear a song by them and say anything else. Like that'll always be my first
which
thought.
is true of me now too.
Yeah.
The Doors, I always think of your dad when I hear the Doors.
So and Metallica is the same way, honestly.
Oh really?
Yeah. And so there's just those few bands that just or artists that I just sit there and say was my dad.
Did he ever like show you songs and stuff to see, like kind of like I do with our kids? Was he ever like that?
I don't remember.
Or you just kind of heard it secondhand because he was listening to it?
Yeah, there's certain things like I kind of have memories, like really specific memories, and I think my dad would play a song not because he was like, oh, I want to show you a song, but he would just kind of like tell us why this was a really great song, and then he would just play it in the Suburban. We'd be driving or whatever. But I remember it being late at night, and it was, I think we were even trying to sleep on a road trip, and he had Riders on the Storm. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And it's like, for crying out loud, we're trying to sleep, and he's got it blasting in the car.
Well, that song can't be played quietly. It's against the law.
And it was a dark night. It was like it was totally the mood for the song.
And the lyrics to that's like "Killer on the road."
Right. Yeah, which is what all children want to hear when they're trying to fall asleep and it's dark outside. That's exactly what they want to hear. So yeah, so there are certain things like that. But I don't remember. I don't really remember my parents ever, either one of them, really saying like, "Hey, let me show you this song" or anything like that. But
was your mom into? Because I know now she's like into. All I know is that she's into like K-pop. Yeah. But like back when you were a kid, do you remember your mom being into music?
Not really. There was a few things. Again, I have certain artists that I just sit there and say like, well, like the Carpenters always make me think of my mom, but I couldn't tell you, oh, she owned their records or their tapes, or we used to listen to it. Like, I don't really know why the Carpenters always makes me think of my mom, but it does. And maybe, yeah, not really. I remember there was a tape, because my mom used to sell Avon, and so there was a cassette tape called the Rockin' Rio cassette tape. Do you remember? Mariah got me a copy of it for my birthday a few years ago, and I was so heartbroken because when we got rid of our last van and we took it to the dismantlers or whatever, the salvage yard, that cassette tape was in the van.
Oh no.
It was in a little, and I remembered afterwards, like there was a pocket, like a little compartment on the dash that like you could tuck things into, and it was a cassette tape, and it fit perfectly into there for storage. Because that was the only place we had a cassette player, was in that van.
Did you remember after? Because didn't we go back to get something else out of the van?
To get something else, and then I remembered later, like a few weeks later, probably too late to go back. So note to anybody listening, if you ever drop your car off at a salvage yard, please make sure you empty every pocket. So this cassette tape, it was called Rockin' Rio because Avon used to sell a perfume called Rio, I think. And it was, the cassette tape was sort of like buy the perfume and, get our exclusive mixtape. And it had, that's where I heard Take On Me by Aha was the first. So I think that was the most listened to song on that mixtape. There was a few other ones on there I liked, but was
it like all like 80s kind of music like that?
Yeah. Okay. It was just kind of like, and I can't really remember. I know there was a few other songs on that tape that I really liked, because when I got it, I was fast forwarding through a lot of it, just like I did when I was a kid. I don't think I listened to it like front to back over and over again. But
so then when CDs came out, were you just mind boggled like I was? Or like, what do you mean I don't have to fast forward to the next song? I can just skip?
Yeah.
Push a button and it goes to the song I want?
Because that was always the worst, when you liked the first song on side A, but you also liked the first song on side B.
Right.
And so you would have to fast forward through the entire tape. You'd have to skip 6 songs so that you could flip the tape over and listen to the other side.
Do you know they did that on purpose? Like they purposely put what they thought were the two biggest songs on the beginning of each side, because they figured people will start the side and they might not get through. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I would say it worked, because later when I started to really, when I started to get my own music as I got older, like the Mariah Carey, her first album, Vision of Love, or was it self-titled?
I think her first one was self-titled. Vision of Love
was the first single, maybe.
Yeah, it was on that album, right? Was that on the first? Yeah. The first song I ever heard by Mariah Carey was Someday.
Yeah.
But I think it was the same album.
Yeah. So that was like the first time. So I'd had the cassette tape, but I loved every song on the album. Yeah. And I could listen to them all the way through. But I do remember there was whatever one of her singles was the first one on A, and one of her other singles was the first on side B. So you did have to.
It might have been Someday was on side 2, I think. Yeah. Or side B, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways.
Yeah. That was already more than I thought I was going to get out of you for music. And we're not even halfway, there's still more coming, because you haven't even got to the, so about what age was that with Mariah Carey? Junior high?
No, before junior high.
Oh, elementary is my junior high. Yes. Is when she came out.
You were already graduated and,
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
No, I think it was I want to say it was 1990 when her first album came out. So that would have been what for you? I think I was in 7th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade.
So if that makes me 10, I was what, 4th grade?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, 4th or 5th grade.
Okay.
I was living in San Jose.
Okay.
At the time.
And are you still a fan of her today?
No.
At what point did you fall off?
I liked her first probably 3 albums. And then she just kind of changed gears. She changed producers, and she was kind of collaborating with more hip hop artists and just kind of trying to change her image.
Yeah.
And I didn't really care for that. You know, I'm all for artists wanting to be able to be free to change their style of music.
Yeah.
I mean, after we saw Jewel in concert, kind of getting to hear her story about how she didn't want to be boxed in. And I totally respect that. I do.
Yeah.
But they also have to respect that as the fan, I may like a certain style that they do. And usually it's the first style you hear them do, right? When you're introduced to something, you're kind of like, oh, this is who they are.
Right.
So I either like the band or I don't like the band. And if I don't like a band, I don't generally come back to it later and say, oh, well, maybe you would have, like, where you say, like, well, I never liked their old stuff, but boy, this new sound is really, they've really found their niche with that.
Yeah, exactly. They kind of find it,
yeah. She was just one of those ones. I really liked the love song ballads that she would do and the powerhouse vocals, and I didn't need her to sound. So I have beef with Mariah Carey.
Are we on Mariah Carey still? Or
Mariah Carey.
Jewel, okay.
Yeah, Mariah Carey specifically. Jewel's a different topic. Mariah Carey specifically, she... there was a song, so this was about the time Destiny's Child got popular, is when Mariah Carey changed.
Okay. And
there was a song she had, and I don't remember which one it was, and I'm sorry for anybody who likes Mariah Carey out there, I apologize. I hated it because she was trying to sound like Beyonce. Beyonce had a unique way of singing and a unique way of, like, I don't know what you call that, where, like, the rhythm that they sing the words, right? She kind of has it. She was very unique when she came out.
Right.
Nobody else, and which is why she was considered.
She kind of like rap sang, right?
Sort of, yeah. It's like she just had this like melody, like this. I don't know, whatever. I'm sure there's some technical term for it. And so to hear Mariah Carey trying to almost copycat that, I was like, I'm done. Yeah. Like I can't even give you like you're not even. You need to step out and find your own. Like she had her own sound that people tried to be her, right? Other people were trying to be like Mariah Carey, and you would listen to someone and you'd be like, well, she's good, but she's no Mariah Carey, right? So now suddenly Mariah Carey is trying to be somebody else, and I'm like, well, yeah, but she's not.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder what her thought process was, because it wasn't like she wasn't selling albums. I mean, because by the time that third album, Music Box, was out, she was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, she was big with her first two also, but then she was like #1s all over the place, and like every album she was putting out had 5 or 6 singles off of it that were all topping the charts.
Which one was Fantasy on?
That was on her 4th one.
Okay, so then I think I liked her 4th album.
I think that was Butterfly, I think was her 4th one with Fantasy, but I think that's where she started to go a little more poppy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that song too. I like that one. But isn't that the one? I'm picturing the video where she's in the helicopter.
I don't think that was the same.
Featuring Mace.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I think that was the next album. I think that's why.
Okay.
Because I think I did like. I liked Fantasy, and there was another one on that album too. With that
maybe that was on Music Box. I don't know. I'm kind of with you. I fell off with her probably around after the third album, so 3rd or 4th album.
Yeah. So so I was Mariah Carey was one of the first. Well, I remember having her cassette tape, and then I remember obviously later getting like CDs, and so.
Yeah. Okay. So for you, it's always kind of been pop.
Yeah,
pop fan.
Yeah, I think as far as like my own music, I would actually turn the radio to listen to. Huge Janet Jackson fan, huge Paula Abdul fan.
Right. Which is all kind of the same genre, really.
Yeah.
Especially back in the 90s when it was that kind of style.
Yeah. So, and then later on it was, even into the late 90s, early 2000s, it was, it was Britney Spears and it was Christina Aguilera. And I felt like I was too old to be listening to that stuff, but not because I was old.
Right.
It's because I had a kid. I was a mom. So I was like, well, I'm supposed to be listening to Raffi. Right. I'm supposed to be listening to, kids pop. I'm not allowed to like this youthful music, but being a secret closet NSYNC fan and things like that. So
okay. And I remember when obviously it was like where I talked about we had Laura when we were really young, and I've kind of not always, but by the time I had met you, I was pretty diverse in my music styles. I liked anything that was good, so I liked a lot of the pop stuff, but I still liked a lot of the heavy rock and stuff. But I remember we used to listen to like Destiny's Child and stuff in their first couple albums, and I remember kind of a big wake up call for us is when Laura was singing along to Bootylicious.
Well, it wasn't even that she was singing,
and she was dancing too,
she was
right?
Dancing,
yeah,
and she would shake her little 2-year-old bottom and talk about how her body was too bootylicious. And I thought, well, I feel like this is not a good thing.
Oh, that was funny because I think that was pre-salvation for each one of us, I believe. So it wasn't like we were trying to live our lives necessarily pure and like all that kind of stuff. But to hear your little 2-year-old dancing and singing lyrics like that is kind of like, okay, maybe we need to curb at least what she's being exposed to.
Yeah.
You know, that's funny. My gosh. So were you back to the Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera? What's the choice there?
Okay, so
there's two different teams here. So.
Well, there is, and I don't have a team. Okay. I think that Christina Aguilera had more vocal range and more. I think she could sing. Okay, absolutely, hands down. If it was a singing contest, if it was The Voice and we were just blind, right, or Masked Singer, or one of these ones where you have no idea who it is, and all you're hearing is her voice, 100% Christina Aguilera would just knock it out of the park.
Right.
But performance-wise, Britney Spears was absolutely. She knew how to put on a show, right? She knew how to
better dancer.
She was a way, I think that was her thing. But looking backwards and seeing some of these, and this is kind of probably a later topic, but in light of all this new documentaries coming out about all of these young stars that were taken advantage of at a young age, and you go back, and I just saw a clip of her at the VMAs or something, and I think, who was I'm trying to remember who the other guy and the presenter was with her, and he said something to her, and this is Britney Spears. She was probably just 18, like she was just a kid, like. Right. And they said something about how she comes out, she's in this nice evening gown to do this I mean, it wasn't like super formal, but she, full coverage. And they said, but Britney, this isn't going to work. And they're saying all this stuff about her body and how she needs to show off her body. And then she literally like takes the dress and rips it off, and she's wearing a more Britney Spears-esque.
Oh, I remember that.
Bra top and skirt that was about 6 inches long.
But it was all staged.
It was all staged, yes.
Yeah.
But the fact that they put her in that place to where, and this is obviously her management telling her from a young age, grooming her to become that, to where they say, like, we don't want you to sing. We want you to be naked on, like, we want you to be a sex symbol. We want you to sell. We don't care whether or not you can sing, but will your body sell albums? Right. And it did, and it worked. And we all ate it up. We all listened to it. We all loved that her songs were poppy and dancey and fun. And nobody really thought about like the consequences of saying and doing those things to a teenager. Right. And then seeing who she is now, right? Like you see her. I don't know if you've ever seen any of her like Instagram clips. And
last I saw, she was dancing around with knives.
But that's all she does now, right? Because she doesn't know. Like, is someone who, she was at Disney Channel like at 12.
Oh yeah, she's.
What I mean? She's been, and honestly, she's been groomed from that to become this certain thing. She literally never got a chance to have a real childhood, a real teenage years, a really young adult life, none of that. And so she's now in her 40s, probably.
I think so.
A little younger than me.
Yeah.
She doesn't know. She's still dancing around her house in her underwear, in front of a camera, because she doesn't know how to do anything else, and that's literally all she does. And you look at that, and I never think, "Oh, she is so talented." I look at her and I say, "I'm so sad for her." Like, it is so sad. So anyway, so it just makes me kind of think differently now about anytime I see these pop singers. Like, I even saw an interview with Halsey yesterday, which of course I watched the video and I was like, who is this girl? I don't recognize her. I can pick her out of a lineup.
I know the name.
Yeah.
And she's been mentioned on here plenty of times, especially when I have younger people on.
Yeah. But it was one of those things where, again, she's being very, very young, like very, very young artist when she came out. And she was talking about how she was in the middle of having a miscarriage, and her management team was in there and didn't know what to do with her while she was laying there with a towel between her legs and going through this thing. And she goes, I didn't know I was pregnant, but I just started having this miscarriage and nobody knew what to do. So one of her managers came in and said, but you have 35,000 people relying on you right now, so we need to get you up. And they literally put her in an adult diaper and put her on the stage. Yeah, right? The face you're making right now is how I felt. Like, it was incredible. And so everybody, of course, looks at her and goes, oh, you're such a hero, and, you're so whatever. And and she was trying to use this as a platform for a women's rights type thing. But But I think that the lesson in that isn't she's so brave, or you know, and none of that. Or I think she was trying to say, like, how much harder we women have it than men because we're still expected to go out there. And she's right. We're still expected to go out there when we go through these traumatic things. You know, moms don't get sick days, right? I'll say that. Mom gets the flu. She's throwing up. Guess what she's got to do between throw-ups? She's got to go take care of her 2-year-old that's throwing up too, right? So I get that. Like, I understand where maybe she was intending to come from, but at the end of the day, I look at that and I think, you have the worst management team ever.
Right.
How could they not just walk out and say, she's ill? She can't perform,
see, that's it though, right? I mean, and I don't think you can blanket all of them this way, but they're about the bottom line. They're about making money. They're not about caring about the person that they're representing. It's whatever it takes. You got to get out there. We sold thousands of tickets to this show. You better get out there and sing. You know, because they're thinking if we have to refund all these people's money, that's millions of dollars we're out.
Right.
You know, so it's sad, but that's just kind of the way it is. And that's why I kind of admire, in a sense, some of the artists that they're smart enough not to go that route. They're smart enough to say, well, I shouldn't say smart enough because anyway, back to what I'll get there. What I was saying was like the ones that will go with maybe with family, which again can be dangerous as it is, but at least sometimes those people care for you. They care about your, you know, like if Addie was to become a pop star tomorrow and I was going to be in charge of all of that, I'm going to be looking out for her welfare, not for how many albums she can sell, right? As opposed to if we go with some agent or some production company or whatever, they're going to be wanting as much money as they can get out of her, no matter what. And it means they have to make her dress scantily, or they have to make her have certain kind of lyrics, or they have to make her dance a certain way. That's all they're going to care about, you know? But I also, that's the second thing I was going to say is that I can't, not that I can't fault them. I pick the wrong words all the time. But it's like sometimes they're given that option. It's either, you know, you do it our way or you're done, you know. And for a young up and coming hopeful, it's like, this is my dream. This is what I want. I've wanted this since I was 5 years old. And now I have the opportunity to be like Beyonce, to be like Mariah Carey, to be like these pop stars that I've adored my whole life. And I can be the one on MTV. I can be the one at the VMAs. I can be the one performing and selling out shows, right? But they're like, oh, but in order for this to happen, you have to disregard all your morals. You have to do whatever we tell you. You have to dress how we say. You have to dance how we say. And that's I wouldn't want to be in that position. Right. You know what I mean? That can't be easy. But then they do it. And then later on they have regrets maybe. And they're like, and maybe once they get enough clout, they get enough money on their own, then they can do it their way. And they're like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm already a platinum selling artist. I'm going to sell albums with or without you. I don't need you anymore. So I'm going to put my clothes back on and I'm going to, you know, because you already have a fan base, right. You know, and I think somebody like Jewel that we were talking about, obviously she has gone through a lot of changes. Like we were talking about when we saw her live, she talked about, you really want to make people hate you, record a pop album. Right. And it was kind of funny because you were sitting there kind of convicted, like, ooh, that was me. Like, yeah. I was really mad when Jewel did that, right?
Right. Well, she's a great example of someone who, her first 2 albums, right? She was a folk singer with her guitar. She was a coffee shop performer, and I loved the rawness in her music. And then she came out with the pop album, and I was like, well, I was in the boat, I think, because I was probably around the same time I was having issues with Mariah Carey's kind of shifting gears. And I was like, really? You're a sellout. Like, you literally are just trying to do what's popular on MTV right now. So that's how I felt. But to hear her explain herself later and say she just wanted to try it, I'm like, now I look back and, well, that's cool. You know, that's cool. Now she does country music. That's cool. Yeah. Like, you know, you want to shift it up. You want to try new things. That's cool. Yeah. And getting to hear her kind of explain why she wanted to try to do every kind of music, every genre of music there was, because as an artist, that's just... Well,
and that was eye-opening for me, or I guess ear-opening for me to hear her talk like that, because we got to hear from her own mouth, assuming she was telling the truth, that was all her decisions.
Right.
It wasn't like the production company said, hey, we want you to do a pop album. She's like, you know what, I'm going to do a pop album. And it almost sounded like her label was mad at her about it.
Yeah.
Like, you can't keep switching genres every album. You can't keep doing this. Well, you know, and she's like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. And she had said that her label was also frustrated with her because she wouldn't just keep spitting out albums.
Right.
She said, I'm going to take a 2-year break.
Yes.
I'm getting to be too popular and I don't like the fame. And because she didn't want fame to ruin her, which I honestly, like hearing her share all of that.
Oh, I
think the talking between songs for her made me. I enjoyed that part of the concert more than even just the listening to her music.
I'm a much bigger fan than I was before that.
I have so much more respect for her, I think, because for her to be able to sit there when she was young, she was 18, 19 when she got signed, and for her to sit there and have the ability to say, no, I know I need a break. No, I will not tour. No, I will not record another album. I gave you the first 2 as promised, and now I need a break. And she did a break. She took a break, and she came back with something totally off the wall. Right, which was her third album, which I think was the one she did pop.
So no, the third one was the one, and I only know this recently because I've actually gotten, and I don't know if you knew this, but I went through and I'm getting some of her music now because, like I said, seeing her live made me a huge fan. So her third album was the one that had Standing Still on it. Am I standing still? So that album's still kind of folksy in a sense, a little more pop leaning, but it's definitely folksy. It was the fourth album, which I haven't gotten yet.
With Intuition? I
don't know that I haven't gotten yet. Okay. I just know it's the one on the cover where she's wearing like the pink outfit and she's all and she looks like all Mandy Moore exactly.
Or
yes, exactly. I don't remember the name of the album, but that's the fourth one. And then the fifth one was the Alice in Wonderland one, which goes back a little more to the folksy-ish
right,
stuff.
But by then she wasn't like I think part of it too is the MTV era had passed. Right, so in the 90s, MTV, 80s and 90s, MTV was all the rage. You'd watch your music videos. That's how we got, if it wasn't listening to, Casey Kasem's Countdown on Saturday mornings to get our hit music, to know what was popular, we would watch MTV, we'd watch TRL, right? You'd watch Total Request Live, or you'd watch their video countdowns or whatever. And then you would, whichever was TRL, right? It was like, they would do the most requested music video.
TRL was Carson Daly, right?
Yeah. And so like that's where well, at least I speak for myself, but I feel like our generation, we would get influenced by that, right? Like whatever music video was being played the most, that's kind of what we started to just like acclimate to as far as like what we liked. And so I think that was part of, so by the time that album came out, there wasn't music videos being pumped out for that stuff either. And I think when you kind of stopped pumping out music videos along with your radio singles, you kind of lost your, I guess, you didn't necessarily get seen by everybody or heard by everybody. And so, but by then, by the, early 2000s, post-pop era, like, then MTV just stopped playing music
and then
videos.
You're where we are now, where a lot of especially the younger people now, they start to love these artists and they listen to songs. A lot of times they have no idea what these people even look like. Like they could pass their favorite singer on the street potentially and have no idea it was even them, because MTV's not real big with music videos. Music videos aren't a big thing really anymore.
Yeah.
They still exist. Like you can go on YouTube and look up your favorite singer and you'll find a bunch of music videos. But most of the time these kids are just listening to Spotify or whatever. And it's just a song will come on. I mean, I've had some people on here that are like in their early 20s or whatever, and they don't even really know. They'll say things like, "Oh, and this my favorite song right now is called XYZ," and I'm like, "Well, who sings that one?" They're like, "I don't even know."
Yeah,
I don't even know. They say it's just this is what it's called, and this is how it goes, but I don't know who it is. So it's become less, I think, about who the artist is, which is kind of an interesting place, because back when you're talking about, that was the music videos. I remember when MTV first came out. Of course, my parents wouldn't let me watch it when it came out because they loved me, but it's just like. That was so huge. You
didn't watch when they first debuted though.
No. I mean, no. I don't mean like that. Like, what was that? Was that early 80s? When was the first?
1980 or 81.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I feel like I'm as old as MTV.
But I heard a trivia somewhere that the first video ever premiered on there was "Video Killed the Radio Star."
Yes, correct.
Which is hilarious.
Yes. Well, intentional.
Yes, but they couldn't have predicted that. Or maybe they could have. I guess that was their hope. Maybe it was
maybe not that was their hope, but maybe that was just kind of a.
But I mean, I remember it wasn't when it first started, but I remember when I was in junior high.
Yeah.
Even watching videos like "Jeremy" by Pearl Jam, or back when when music videos first started coming out, they're like beer commercials. You had these women in bikinis and some rock band playing, and it was it wasn't really anything to it. It was like watching a live show. That wasn't really a live show. It was like a staged live show. Mm-hmm. But then at some point it started becoming more artsy. Hey, we can tell stories. We can make little mini movies out of these music videos.
Okay, so it was funny you say that, because I was just thinking that as you were talking about music videos really becoming like storytelling, and I thought of Meatloaf. Do you remember when he had I Would Do Anything for Love?
I know
and
the song.
There was like the 22-minute version. There was like a whole mini. I don't know if it was 20 minutes. But it was really, really long because it was a whole story, right? That would be like the music video. But then they had a spliced together version that they would play during regular like countdown times or whatever, like a normal, 5-minute video. But there was like this, like maybe it was like 12 minutes. I'll have to look it up on YouTube.
Was the whole video all music, or was there some spots where it was like acting and stuff? I
don't remember. It was sort of a Beauty and the Beast type story.
I remember just now when you said that.
Yeah.
How funny! I had no recollection of it. You said Beauty and the Beast, and now I remember.
Yeah. And so I remember like it was like a big deal. It was like this like epic thing where they were like, oh, and we're gonna premiere Meatloaf's new video, and it was a big deal because I think that was like his comeback song too.
That's like the only song I know by him.
Like Love by the Light of the Dashboard, or
no, maybe by title. I think we had this. We were having a trivia night or something, and you knew more than I did about it. I didn't know you were such a huge Meatloaf fan.
So huge.
I'm a big fan of the food, but not so much the singer. I mean,
no, and I know that. At some point, he legally had all of his stuff, like his credit cards were in the name of Meatloaf. Like he didn't use his given name on his.
Oh, that's not his given name?
No, he was not born Meatloaf.
Oh, I thought his parents were just really mean.
No, they were like, they gave birth to this chunky kid. He looks like a loaf of meat.
Well, who knows? Maybe the mom had meatloaf the night before, and that's all maybe she had bad indigestion, and she was burping up meatloaf flavor, and she was like, this is what we want to name this kid. No? I mean, yeah. I think you were a bit. That's the only song I can remember. Maybe if you played another one for me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I know that song. But I don't.
And then there was another one he had after that was Objects in the Rearview Mirror. I just know the song. I don't know if that's what it's called, but it was like Objects in the Rearview Mirror may appear closer than they are.
Isn't that what it says on now? What came first?
No, the mirror said that, but the idea is just like your memories. It's about your memories. Because that's actually what it says on the side mirror. It says objects in the mirror.
Oh, not the rear view.
Not the rear view mirror.
What's that? Is that called a side mirror?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I remember a few of his songs. Again, I don't know why. I don't really sit there and think of like, my top 10 artists, Meatloaf is one of them.
Yeah, you're huge. You're a huge fan. It's out there for the world now.
But I think it was just during my MTV era. So
funny that's the one you would remember.
I don't know. I just do.
What other videos do you remember from back in the day that were impactful?
Like early, well, again, I go back to okay, we didn't talk about Janet. Janet.
We will.
Okay.
Yeah.
That album.
The Janet album.
Album.
That was her best one.
Okay.
I think.
So inappropriate that at 14 years old, I thought it was the greatest album of all time.
Yeah.
Adult me looks back and thinks, oh my gosh. I was singing about...
Yeah.
Yeah. It's mortifying.
But see, I didn't know that either. Like, I mean, you probably realized that before I did. I didn't realize that until the last couple of years when I was listening to That's the Way Love Goes.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to some of the actual lyrics going, she said what right there?
Well, it's funny. If you go back, and there's all kinds of TikToks and Instagram Reels and things like that where people our age are singing along to old songs that they haven't listened to in 20 years and just going, wait, what?
Yeah.
Excuse me? Because I think you hear what you know, right? And so when you're 14 years old, I don't know what all that stuff is. It doesn't mean anything to me. I'm just singing the words, right?
Right.
Or If. Okay, so music video, If was the video, the whole dance sequence.
I don't know.
If I Was Your Girl. I'm not gonna sing it.
What's the? That's not the song. I don't think that's the song I'm thinking of. There's another song on there that I'm thinking of. But go ahead. If the video for If was all choreographed and
yes, and it was epic. And so this is the time where I was doing cheer in junior high, which is probably when that album came out. Just for the record, when we got the internet in our house when I was 14 years old, it was the first time we had internet in our home. And my dad said, yeah, this is called the World Wide Web. And you can look up anything. And he was really, it was a big deal. My dad was a computer guy.
Yeah.
And it was a really big deal to have internet in our home. And I don't know if anybody else ever has this experience where you're like, what was the first thing you ever, well, we call it Googling now, even though Google wasn't a thing then. But just for the record, also Google came out in 1998. Just learned this 1999. I'm sorry. Allura is older than Google.
Wow.
So, but yeah. So the first thing that I searched on the internet, my first World Wide Web search was Janet Jackson. because I was in the midst of my Janet era. And that was like...
What were you looking for?
Anything. My dad was like, you can put anything you want into the search bar, and we have access to all of this information now. Now, granted, there was only whatever people put. Like, Janet Jackson's team had to have built a web page for her in anticipation of people are going to start having access to this all the time. So it was super boxy and weird. I'm sure, you know, you look at it now, it'd probably be like the most, like, it'd be like looking like caveman pictures on the wall. It'd be so, you know, but... I was like, oh, I could Google. I mean, I could search anything. Sorry, I'm going to keep saying Google because that's just that's the verb we use now. But I mean, I could search anything, but that was what was important to me at the time. I was 100% like in my Janet era. All the words to all the songs, trying to learn all her dance moves. So, so I was in cheer in 8th grade, and then I did dance 9th, 10th, and 11th grade in school. And so like I wanted to... I mean, I told you before, Paula Abdul was one of my other huge influences when I was younger and growing up. And I wanted to be able to dance like Paula Abdul or Janet Jackson or Britney Spears, even when I was a mom, but trying to pretend I was still, you know, young and, you know.
Well, you were young.
I was young, but I felt old because I had a kid.
Right.
I felt like that's something moms don't do. Moms don't put on, you know, bra tops and stretch pants and get on the stage and dance around. But I that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to choreograph dances like that. I wanted to be one of those dancers. And
well, that's the difference. Those three that you mentioned are more than just singers. So that was more the appeal to you.
Yes.
Was their choreography and their dancing.
As I let, like, my musical influences were definitely partially influenced by the ability to perform.
Right.
Like, and I wanted abs like Janet had. I wanted to be able to see, you know,
6-pack.
Not a 6-pack, but, you know,
4-pack.
I wanted to. That's what I wanted. I wanted that. So, yeah.
You probably had that going on before Laura came along. No.
You've seen pictures.
I don't remember.
I've had long ago. I've had a soft belly my whole life, even when I wasn't like overweight before I had kids. I always just had a little bit of squish.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It was just.
I like that.
It's just who I am. So.
Yeah, I was never into the real fit, like, bodybuilding kind of chicks. It's not even bodybuilding, just even like they don't have to be. I mean, there's the bodybuilder girls that are like just ripped and really disgusting. No offense to anybody who does that. Hey, do your thing. But even the girls that were really athletic, never been my thing. See, so that was all part of it. See, I probably wouldn't have been attracted to you if you were too athletic.
Yeah.
So.
Well, lucky for you, I wasn't a very good coordinated dancer. So.
Yeah. No, you were good. I used to watch you. Remember, we used to watch.
Never really went anywhere.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't mean you weren't good. You know. So back to Janet though. So you think you mentioned Janet as being what you think is her best, which I agree with you. Did you ever go? Did you like her early stuff as well, like the Rhythm Nation or Control albums?
So when I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to listen to the Jacksons. I wasn't allowed to listen
any
to
of them.
Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson were off limits because they used to be Jehovah Witnesses.
Yeah.
And they were not practicing Jehovah Witnesses.
So they were the devil.
We weren't allowed to. From what my understanding was at the time, I can't speak for what it actually is. My understanding when I was a kid was that, well, because they were Jehovah Witnesses who left the church, therefore we can't, like, they're like forbidden. And that was just kind of the mentality behind a Jehovah Witness. You didn't talk to somebody who used to be part of that if they were outside of that.
Almost like they were traitors.
Something like that, yeah. So that was my understanding of the why. And then Madonna was totally off limits because she was anti everything.
Yeah. So there's lots of reasons she probably should have been off limits.
But I remember specifically because I really liked, and I don't remember what song it was, but there was a Michael Jackson song and something about, you know, my mom was like, oh no, we don't listen to that, and this is why.
The Thriller?
So well, I don't remember specifically, but yeah, just Michael Jackson in general, you know. So it wasn't until 90s era that I was like, so by then Michael Jackson had, was it the History album?
That's the 90s, yeah.
So it was sometime in that era. So anytime like after like probably like 92, I started to really like kind of get to listen to my own my own music. Not a lot. I wasn't a huge music listener. I used to, like I said, I used to listen to Casey Kasem's countdowns.
Right. But by then your parents were no longer part of the church.
So we weren't really being quite as, you can't listen to stuff. But I don't, part of it could have just been age too. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, when you're 8, you listen to different things. You just kind of listen to what your parents listen to, as opposed to when you're 12, 13, 14, and then you listen to whatever on the radio. My parents weren't around as much. Like we would have listened to whatever probably anyways at that point. But I was, you know, growing up more exposed to like old like classic rock and stuff like that.
Because they were all.
My dad was a big classic rock
guy. Well, then plus all those bands were obviously very upright and totally all for God and everything.
I'm sure.
To do, you know, but that Jackson family.
Yeah.
Even Tito, you couldn't even listen to Tito.
I just remember it was just being told that they left
so
their Jehovah Witness faith, and that was why we weren't allowed to listen to them.
Okay. Right.
Or that they were non-practicing. I think it was something like that. You know, they weren't doing their duties and.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, if I held that belief system, I could see why that would be a big thing.
Yeah.
I remember the song. I don't remember the name of it, but it was I think it was on Janet. It was a slow one there. The hold me.
Was that from Poetic Justice? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can I be strong? Yeah, that one. Yeah, it was in Poetic Justice.
Yeah.
But it was also on the Janet album. Mm. What's the name of that song?
Something You Again. But on that
Again. That's what it was called. Again. You're right. You got it.
Yeah.
Good job, babe.
Yep. You're welcome.
Yeah. So we're an hour in. Can you believe that? Does it feel like an hour's gone by?
Yes.
No, it does not.
Yes, it does.
No way, Jose. All right. So let's kind of jump a little bit then to that was kind of the music you grew up liking and listening to back in, especially in your dance days and that kind of stuff. But then at some point, well, not at some point, when we became Christians, obviously we started listening to more Christian music. So did you when we started doing that, was it more like the poppy, more pop style of Christian artists that you were more attracted to in the beginning, or?
I don't really remember. A lot of what we listened to was just what was on our local Christian radio station.
K-Life.
K-Life, yeah.
R.I.P.
Oh, I know. I miss local radio stations, period. Mm-hmm. It's one of those big things where it's just cheaper for them to do national shows than it is for them to do
but it was so cool when we used to go down to the station. Yeah. Remember, and you and I worked there a few times. But
then to meet the DJs and be part of their Christmas cookie exchange.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. We'd bring cookies down and they'd give you free CDs.
And I would win CDs all the time on the radio station.
That was awesome.
Yeah, so in the beginning, I mean, really with Christian music, there was a lot smaller choice of music, and only what I was exposed to is really only what they played. So it wasn't like, because I know there's always bands that have been around for ages and releasing their own stuff independently or whatever. And it was all, I just would listen to whatever was on the radio. So, but I remember really liking, and this is again, as Laura was starting to get a little bit older and wanted kind of more of her own pop music, her own version of Britney Spears, right? Was Stacie Orrico and Rachael Lampa. And again, there you go. There's two. So Stacie Orrico was the Britney Spears. She was a good singer, but she was also a performer. But she was, and then Rachael Lampa was a good singer.
Much better singer.
But with stronger vocals.
She was like the Christina Aguilera.
Right. So she was the Christina. Scene, So anyways, but I liked both of them. And what was the band that we saw that opened for Newsboys?
Plus One.
Yeah. So they were like the NSYNC.
NSYNC.
Yeah. They were the Christian NSYNC. And so I really liked them because I really, that style of pop music was really popular mainstream. And so it was really nice to have a clean version of that to listen to with my kids.
Right.
And so, so like I kind of started into those genres. And then I remember listening to K-Life, and the first time I heard Shawn McDonald, I mean, it was mind-blowing.
That was like Gravity, probably?
No.
Take My Hand?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe it was Take My Hand.
Okay.
No, Take My Hand came first.
Did it?
I think.
Came first on the album, but I could be wrong, but I feel like Gravity was
But I remember hearing him, and it was funny because that's one of those things where you don't know what somebody looks like, but you hear them sing for the first time.
Yeah.
And I did not picture what he looks like. Like, I pictured someone like more of a soul singer, if that's a good visual, you know.
You mean like you thought he was a black guy?
I thought he was a black guy.
Really? I'd never heard this story. How funny.
He just had a very you know, like that.
I could see it for sure.
Soulful,
I think I saw him before I heard him.
So that's
the probably
first
why.
time. So and then I learned what he looked like, and then the first time I like really actually went and saw him live, I went to see him play in Santa Barbara, and he walks out onto stage barefoot with a guitar and a guy with a cajon, and that was it. And he was just like, he almost looked homeless. Yeah. Like nothing like I pictured the very first time I ever heard him play. But I mean, like I said, I had already known what he looked like by then, but yeah. So Shawn McDonald was big.
And I wasn't at that show.
No, I went with
I saw him live with you later at another time when you were promoting shows.
Yeah. So so Shawn McDonald, and then Shawn McDonald led into my love for Paul Wright. Right. And then somewhere around this time, I think the more I got connected with the local Christian radio station, I ended up connecting with a guy, Jonathan something or other, who
Oakman?
Maybe, who was like a local promoter, concert promoter. And so I don't remember at what point, if we connected at a show or because I won tickets, and so he was the person I talked to. Yeah. Because I would win tickets to shows all the time.
I don't remember either. I just.
But yeah, I ended up, and so for a while I was helping to promote other artists. So like Bethany Dillon was sort of the Christian jewel, right? She was a young singer-songwriter with a guitar, and I loved her. Yeah. So I helped promote her shows. I helped promote Shawn McDonald and Paul Wright. And I got to meet the artist Sanctus Real. I got to have dinner with them. That was cool. Yeah.
Again, I wasn't there.
Again, you weren't there.
I was supposed to be there, right? Didn't I have the stomach flu or something?
Yes, you did. I left you at home on the floor.
Hey, I'm glad you did though, because if you didn't, you wouldn't have these memories to talk about. See.
But yeah, so there was a season where I was more connected with the radio stations, so I was more connected with promoting shows, and there was a lot of shows back then, on the Central Coast. We don't have that anymore.
I know, it's terrible.
And so, but again, I think music has changed so much over the years, how we promote music, right? So in order to promote music, they used to have to go out and play shows everywhere to promote their music. Now everything's through social media. So much more just happens through. I mean, they can do a live stream on social media to millions of people and only play one concert in one city and not have to travel, right? As opposed to before we had access to that kind of platform, they would literally just have to travel church to church or, whatever to like promote the music. Because, so many people. I can't even tell you. Jeremy Camp. I saw Warren Barfield. Yeah. Sarah. I can picture her. She's
the red hair. Yeah.
Sarah, I keep picturing Meredith.
I keep saying Sarah Ferguson. No, that's a different.
No, I keep picturing Meredith.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, lots of people.
Oh, it's going to bother me now. I'll think of it.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah. So they just, so I did that for a long time, and I don't remember why, if it just stopped doing shows and I just kind of stopped doing them, or if that was the,
I can't remember the timeline either. And I don't remember if when we had Alabaster Box to play in the flood at Calvary. Yeah. Which was just like, really cool and weird because it was like that. It is not a venue for something like that, but it worked.
We made it work. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know what the band thought when they got there. I mean, they're from Australia and they're just like, oh, we're here touring the US, so we're going to play a coffee shop. And it's like, there's like 30 seats tops in here.
Yeah. And we didn't, and it wasn't like we even packed it out. It was just kind of a weird situation, but but I mean, there were other bands. There was, who were the ones to sing BarlowGirl?
Super Chick,
yeah.
And did you promote that show too?
I helped with it because you guys stayed after and helped pack the
van,
the truck afterwards.
Yeah,
so,
which was awesome.
Yeah, so it's just cool. Like, we used to be, we both used to be like way more into the music scene,
And John Rubin played that night too.
Yeah, John Rubin. And,
and I forgot who else. Was that Sanctus Real again that night?
No, it wasn't Sanctus Real.
Olivia the band?
They played Olivia the band played with Paul Wright and Shawn McDonald in that smaller band.
I get them all.
Yeah.
Even when I talk about the old punk days, I can't remember who played with who. I can just remember who I saw.
Yeah. So, anyways, it was sometime after that. And I think when we saw the Supertones final show, that was probably one of the last concerts I went to.
Okay.
And I think I just sort of, I think my work stuff shifted. I think life just, and then we had 2 more babies. Yeah.
What were we thinking?
Yeah. Well, because we went and we saw BarlowGirl.
When Addie was
a baby. So I remember I had to get tiny little earplugs for her.
Yeah. And we have a picture of them holding her.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but by that time, I think that was, I mean, that might have been, I don't remember which concert was, I think.
That was way down south, was BarlowGirl.
BarlowGirl was probably after Supertones. But yeah, it just like, it started to like fizzle out, like for my, so there was just like a season of a few years where I was like way into it.
Right.
And I liked that kind of stuff. I would do it again if I knew how to do it. I would do it.
So that's the promoting stuff kind of fizzled out, but like where you are now, or like we talked about in the beginning, you're not as into music as you used to be.
Yeah. So I think somewhere in that same time frame, I started working more. I was commuting more to work. My office moved, 30, 40 minutes away. And I found myself, rather than listening to the radio or, music, I was doing audiobooks. So I stopped listening to music.
Okay.
And when I was listening to music, I was at a warehouse where I wasn't in control of the music. So there was just a lot of country,
which you like,
which I like. Yeah. I don't not like it, but it wasn't like I found myself going out, I have to buy the album or I have to go see this concert. Because I think that's not my genre. I like it.
Yeah.
No problems with it. But just not really my scene to where I'm like, oh yeah, I totally want to go to these concerts and I totally want to buy these albums and I totally want to start wearing boots again, whatever. Right. Nothing like that. So
again, you used to wear cowboy boots.
But yeah, just so I think I just kind of stopped listening to music. So when music was on, if I wasn't listening to an audiobook, a lot of times I found myself just driving home in silence. I would spend 30 to 40 minutes sitting in a car with the radio off because I just needed decompression time. And music, just any noise, I would be like feeling like overstimulated. Just, I don't know if it was stress of work or knowing that I had a stressful day at work and I was going to come home to a stressful house with 2 babies at home because I had 2 kids 2 years apart at home waiting for me. So I just needed silence. And then that was it. So and then after that, I just don't really think in the last 15 years, I've really been like, oh, I heard this new artist. Every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, I heard this new artist. I think you'll really like it. Or I think I like it. Can you, there was one guy, I just had you get something from me. It was a song I had you download.
The one, your love's worth the risk.
Yeah.
That guy?
It was kind of like,
who
I don't know what you call it, like new wave kind of.
No, it's that one's awesome.
Yeah.
Like that.
And so in my mind, I heard that song and it just reminded me of that feeling I had the first time I heard my first Shawn McDonald song or my first Paul Wright song where I was like, this is going to be epic. This guy is going to blow up and it's so good and I can't But then you got the song. I literally haven't listened to it since. It comes on the radio sometimes.
I got a bunch of songs of his. I probably got like 20 of his songs because he hasn't put out a full-length album yet as far as I know. They're all EPs.
Just a bunch of EPs. But yeah, so I think it's just I don't really like the radio's on sometimes in the car. I don't have music on my phone.
Right.
I don't have any kind of
Well, it's kind of a bummer because as we're talking about this, I'm realizing how many of the bands that I really like and singers that I really like, I didn't even know until you showed them to me.
Yeah.
Like BarlowGirl.
Yeah.
I would have never listened to BarlowGirl, really, and then they ended up, by their third album, was like, wow, this is some really deep, and some of their songs have really spoken to me and still do when I listen to them, but, or even Sean McDonald.
Yeah.
Getting to see him live and was just like blown away by that. And still today, I can listen to, at least his first album I can listen to, other ones are like, they're all right. But Paul Wright, same thing.
But this is up there, just know that I have an ear for great music.
You do. You need to listen to it more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So give me an example of a band or an artist that you think is terrible.
A band
just
or an
terrible.
Artist that
I know these exist because I play them and you're like, this is horrible.
I don't know the names of all of them. Okay. You could probably tell me 10 punk artists right now and I could tell you 9 of them suck.
Well, what's the one you would say you didn't? Do you know?
I don't know.
Is there any punk bands you say you like?
Maybe. Some that are probably tolerable.
Okay.
But pretty much, there's that one that you listen to. I think 15 is one of the worst of all time.
Which is beautiful. Because that's the beauty of music. How is it that you and I can sit down and I can put on, like, I don't know, Petroleum Distillation by 15. And you can be doing this with your fingers in your ears, and I can just be transported to a heavenly place.
Yeah, I don't know.
Of amazingness.
Because you're broken. Yeah, it's truly because I think, honestly, I think that there's just something that we find different about it. You hear music differently than I hear music.
Right.
You listen to things where you'll say the lyrics they're so intense, they're so heavy, they speak so much to me, right? And all I hear is noise. Right? I can't even get through the vocals to tell you whether or not it makes any sense or anything.
Well, it's because it's about the sound, but like with 15, yes, I do really like their lyrics, but they could be singing about stuff that I didn't care about at all, and I would still like it. Because I do also really like the sound, and I think that's, even you would probably listen to some of their lyrics and be like, oh, these are good lyrics. Like if I just gave them to you on a paper, but like you said, you can't get past.
Yeah, I think
it's the vocals mostly that you don't.
They're one of the worst. I think that.
I love it. It's awesome.
No, there's definitely some. Again, we're talking about country music. There's probably some newer country stuff that I think is trash. I think that, I mean, really, they'll probably pick any genre. I am probably I know I'm in the minority and probably going to get a lot of hate mail for this. I do not like Bob Marley. I think reggae music most of it is just, I don't enjoy it. People love it. They love it. Okay.
Well, that's two different categories though. Because yes, Bob Marley is reggae music.
Well,
but there's Bob Marley and then there's reggae music.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying. Most, like, probably true reggae music, I don't like. I don't find it relaxing like people do. And maybe because I'm not high when I'm listening to it, maybe that's the problem.
I'm not either, and I still like it. So,
but I don't like it. I don't find it enjoyable or relaxing or anything about it. It doesn't make my mood feel calm. Like nothing like other people love it. Okay. However, you have someone like Paul Wright, an artist like Paul Wright, who has reggae influenced music.
Yes.
And I like it.
Okay.
Because it's more of a beach sound. It's more of that San Diego beach sound has influences of reggae.
Right.
But it's not reggae music. So I don't like reggae music, and I don't like Bob Marley. Okay, there's another one. Another one.
Let it out, babe.
Let it out. All right.
You can do it.
I never got and will never understand people's love and obsession for Nirvana. Yeah, I know. Fighting words. I know. I just don't get it. I don't find his lyrics are.
They're nonsense.
They're nonsense.
No, they are nonsense.
But they're not even like poetic nonsense. They're just, you can't understand anything he says.
Yeah, you're not.
He looks like he hasn't showered since he was 12.
Well, that's the point. That's kind of the look. That's the grunge.
I know. So I never got into that. I never.
Even like the songs themselves, like even if you take the look away, like you can't listen to like
the bass line for "Come As You Are."
Okay.
Right. I could be like, okay, this sounds like it's going to be a good song, and then it starts, and I'm like, turn it off.
Okay.
Right. So that's one. Let's see.
So what about other? Do you like grunge music at all, or is it just like Nirvana that you don't like?
No, I grunge isn't really one of my favorite genres. But there's a few. Like I like some. I always like Stone Temple Pilots.
Okay.
Like there's some grunge music that I but for the most part I was never really. The only time I dressed like I was in the grunge era, but that was just part of the 90s vibe.
Right.
I also went through a skater phase, even though I never really listened to skater music and punk music and all that stuff. I was never really into the music. I just dressed the part.
Right.
So, let's see. Let's pick another genre.
Yeah.
I never been a Notorious B.I.G. fan.
Okay.
And most female rappers, I don't think are very good.
Okay.
I couldn't sit there and name names, but just...
I'm with you there. Most of.
I think there's a... Well, I would say rap in general, actually. There are very few rappers that I think are talented.
Okay.
As far as, like, you have to have a very smooth flow. You have to have, I would say good vocals, but not like good... Obviously, it's not like you have to have powerhouse vocals, but you really have to have a good sound.
Yeah. And
somebody who sounds like he has peanuts stuffed in his cheeks when he's trying to rap.
Yeah.
Or he's choking on his tongue.
This is B.I.G. you're talking about?
Oh, I wasn't naming names. But I just...
Yeah. I've never been a huge fan of his vocal.
Yeah.
But he do have some songs. He does have some songs that when they come on, or if I hear them or they're on the shuffle on my phone or something, I crank it just because of the beat and the sound and the, you know, or whatever. What's that one? I don't know. There's one in what's the movie with Julia Stiles that we like?
10 Things I Hate About You.
There's one where she's at the party and she's all drunk, and then and that song comes on and she goes, "I love this song," and she gets up on the table and starts dancing, and he's trying to get her down or whatever. That song's awesome. Not because of the vocal. Like I said, I could think of a lot of rappers that I think have a better voice that I could put in singing rapping the exact same words over that beat. It's just really awesome. Yeah. But yeah, what about Tupac? Because people always say Tupac or Biggie, Tupac or Biggie.
No, again, I don't know a whole lot of stuff. However, if you told me to pick like my probably top 25 songs, like impactful songs of my like childhood, my life, I would probably put California Love up there as one of my all-time, like probably one of my favorite rap songs ever. And again, I don't know if it's because I think hold on, represent my state. Yeah. It represents my era, my teen years.
Is that Cali pride?
Yeah, so proud of living in California. No, back in the 90s maybe. Yeah. But just before I was an adult and had to like do grown-up things. But you know, something about it just puts me back like in this, you know, place. And again, I remember the music video, and it was just like this epic dystopian.
It's weird, right? They're sitting in thrones made out of bones or something.
It's like a desert, and they're riding the like quads through the desert, and it's sort of like Waterworld, but in sand instead of water.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just like, so I loved that one, and you know, and so like I like Dr. Dre, but like not all of his stuff, because again, I think Dre sometimes has that same thing, like I just don't. I'm like, but he's a really good producer.
Oh yeah,
I think he, you know,
probably like Nothing But a G Thing and some of those ones.
Yeah, but again, I go back and I'm like, I cannot believe I listened to this stuff.
Well, lyrically, right? Yeah. But like the beat and stuff is just really cool.
But yeah, so
okay, nice. That's a cool little segment. I think I'm gonna start having that on here. What's the kind of what's some artists that you hate?
Yeah.
You know, because we always talk about what's your favorite this, what's your favorite that, and it's like it's kind of cool to be like, well, what's stuff that when it comes on you just turn it instantly because you can't stand it. Okay. You know?
You want one more? I have one more I can't stand. My list of can't stands is probably longer than my list of can't stand.
That's good.
And again, rest in peace. Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett. Oh, okay. That's a way different style than what we talked about so far.
I don't know what you call that.
Jazz? Pop standards,
kind of Kerner, I think. You know, but so I like Dean Martin. I like, you know, Frank Sinatra. I like, you know, Bing Crosby. Like, I like old school stuff.
Right.
I could never. Tony Bennett was the one. I always. Okay, so there was the skit from the Muppets with Rolf, and he's playing the piano. And Fozzie is singing. Fozzie Bear's singing about I got rhythm. I got rhythm, right? Except he doesn't, right? And he's singing off key, and Rolf is trying to keep up with him. So finally, Rolf tells him, saying, "I don't got rhythm." Right. That's how I feel about Tony Bennett.
You don't think he's got rhythm?
He does the thing where he sings like not with the music, like a pause, and then he'll say something like you know, like, and I wonder
if that was only because, like, for us listening to Tony Bennett, most of us our age know him from like, he did an album with Amy Winehouse, and he did something with Lady Gaga, and he's like in 100 years old at that point. So I wonder if you went back and listened to his music from when he was like 30.
Yeah.
Did he still sing like that, or was that just part of him being old? I guess I'd really have
to listen to. I mean, I'm not thinking necessarily about like his collaborations with new stuff. Just anything I've heard by him. It's just one of those guys that just kind of. And some people like that. That part of that's, you know, part of that is jazz music. It's got its own rhythm to it. But I just don't think that that's something that I really care for. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big thing for me either. Like I don't know a lot of Tony Bennett, actually, to be honest with you, but like you mentioned, like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, like I have a lot of those songs in my library, and I don't know if it's really because I like that kind of music or if it's just I like the way it makes me feel. Yeah. Because my grandma used to listen to that kind of stuff, and it's kind of nostalgic, and she used to be a big fan of that stuff, you know.
So I listen to when I'm cooking, especially like holidays, meals, that's the kind of music I put on because it puts me back in this place of where I feel like I need to put on my best dress, my pearls, my heels, and an apron, and just you know,
and cook something good.
While
you know what I mean?
Smoking. Something about like it makes me think of like that generation of like I'm about to produce this massive, beautiful meal, and it's going to be Betty Crocker. It's going to put Betty Crocker to shame. Like it, you know. Even though my food sucks and it's just, you know, box mix, whatever. But it
totally sucks. That's why you always hear me complaining about your cooking all the time.
But it just puts me in that mindset. Like it changes my mood. So, closing remarks on music. I think that music absolutely affects my mood. I think I think that that's really what, well, you know, good pop music makes you feel happy. Yeah. Makes you want to dance, makes you want to move, kind of gets you going. I mean, well, that's for me. I mean, for you, it's your shower playlist is way more screamy than I like. Right. That's the kind of stuff that makes me want to crawl under the bed. But just, you know, like I think music absolutely changes your mood, and so I can, if I feel like I need to be, you know, Betty Crocker, then I go to some Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra, and if I feel like, you know, I want to dance around my house while I'm cleaning, then I'll put on some Britney Spears, and I'll, you know. If you want to jump off a building, you put on some Nirvana. Yeah, that's right. If I feel like sitting on the edge of a pier, ready to jump off, just push play, put me over the edge. All right, cool. We'll wrap that music part there. Ready to jump into some politics? Nope. Not your favorite topic? Not my favorite topic. What is your favorite topic? My favorite topic is planning our next vacation. Where are we going? Favorite. I don't know yet. Well, this week we're doing Universal Studios. Right. So it's a little thing for me to kind of look forward to. But yeah. No big vacation plans on the horizon. But I really am thinking about this. What if I became a travel agent on the weekends and all my spare time? Yeah. All my spare time. Well, if that took off, then you could dump the other two side hustles and just buy from them and right. You know. But yeah, I'm going to talk to this person about it because she kind of does it as her side business. Oh, you know somebody? Well, I just met her in this event that I've been doing this last week, this vendor event. And that's what she does. She goes in these vendor events and she says like, "Hey, have you ever thought about taking a vacation?" And she sells her travel, like planning expertise on there. And you book through her travel agency, the company she works for, and then she gets a percent of the commission off of that. So I'm like... Plus, I think you'd take joy in that, though. I think it'd be more than just the money. I think it's something that I enjoy researching places. I love comparing hotels, and you tell me we're going on a trip. You tell me there's even a chance we might go on a trip. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to sit down with my laptop and I'm going to research and I'm going to plan and I'm going to... Right. I used to love doing itineraries. You know that. Oh, yeah. How many times did we take a trip where I don't travel without my 3-ring binder? I love you doing itineraries. Yeah. So... Because then I just go where you tell me and it's great. So I used to be really big into that back when it was everything... You had to print everything. Right. My you know, first big 2-week, 3-week road trip we did, and I had a 3-ring binder with all the MapQuest printed stuff. But... Yeah, all the restaurant suggestions, menus, because we were vegetarian at the time. Where can we eat on our road trip? What places have things we can eat? And, you know, what theme parks, like where we're going to, I used to have my Disney binder. So, looking at, if I became a travel agent, I would actually get paid to go on a cruise. Because they would want me, how can I tell somebody about how great a cruise is if I don't take one and tell you what I know, right? And bring your husband with you. Or hotels, or whatever, you know? Like, how can I sell somebody on a trip to Europe if I haven't gone to Europe and stayed at that bed and breakfast in Ireland? Because they can't trust you. Right? I mean, otherwise you're no better than them. You're just looking from afar. Yeah. So, anyways, I have this dream of traveling more. And I think that because our kids... We're only 4 years away from... I'm going to cry. We're only 4 years away from having all adult children. So you say that and I say, woohoo! You're crying with joy. Yes. I'm just crying for the season of change. But in 4 more years, and then I start thinking, well, gosh, we're still so young. Yeah, we are. Right? Like, I was done having kids by the time I was 29. So, I mean, I have years of life ahead of me. Yeah. And so I thought, well, if I become a travel agent, I can start planning trips for us, and I can start. It'll help me learn. I'll get lots of research in as I help other people plan their trips, and then I'll get. And if I do it as a business, aren't they all tax write-offs? Yeah, we took a 2-week trip to Europe, and it was all research for work, so it's all a tax write-off, or whatever. But like, even if it was just discounted kind of stuff, like. And I always see those people who get sponsored trips where they'll be like, oh, we stayed at the Disney Grand Californian and 2 days in the parks, all sponsored by this travel agency, because the travel agency wants those people to get on their social platforms and tell everybody else about how to book through them and do that. So anyways, I think something like that would be really good. So it's nothing to do with politics, but that is something I enjoy talking about.
But I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm behind you on that one because I foresee some perks to that.
Yeah.
So but yeah, that's not about politics. So let's talk about politics. Where do you want to go with politics? Do you? I know you don't really follow politics, but I know you have opinions because you send me stuff sometimes. I know you're a huge Joe Biden fan. Big fan. You got the bumper sticker on your car and the
No, but
flag.
I saw somebody with the bumper sticker on their car still, Biden and Harris, and I thought, aren't you embarrassed?
No, they're not. They're
mean,
not embarrassed.
It's one thing to be like, well, I'm not going to outwardly say that I'm ashamed of what has happened in the last few years, or not even like, again, probably getting over my head in things I don't totally fully understand, but like just the things that they say, the fact that neither one of them are mentally coherent.
Right.
They say nonsensical things if they go off script even the tiniest bit. And even when they stay on script, Joe Biden says things like pause.
Right.
So it's hard for me. Like I would say, I'm not telling them they have to say, I'm sorry I voted for Biden.
Right.
Because they're not sorry, but at least take the sticker off your car, because I wouldn't be announcing it like you're proud of it either.
Well, but I think they're still proud because what's the option? Well, I guess just not voting at all is an option, but they don't want anybody to think they voted for Trump, because I think they would stand by their decision even today over Trump.
I think those certain people should never have made it that far in the presidential race. They should never even in the primaries. That should never have been an option.
Oh, I'm with you. Yeah.
It really shouldn't have.
Well, it was all weird how it happened anyway, because he kind of slid in there like last minute.
Right.
As one of the candidates, yeah.
You get as a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
You know, was he placed there for a reason? Did they manipulate things because they knew he would be putty in their hands? And he'll read whatever's on the script. Like he'll read whatever's on the teleprompter.
Right. And it was a good time to do that, because for them to be like, look, the political climate in this country is there's a lot of hatred for Trump. Mm-hmm. And this is an election where if Trump's running again for re-election, pretty much anybody can beat him, because it's the whole anybody but Trump philosophy. I'll vote for anybody as long as it's not Trump. Yeah. So then they put this guy who obviously Biden's way worse off mentally now than he was when he was elected, I think. But even then, it wasn't like he was saying things that were amazing or you know what I mean? But it was just, he's not Trump.
Well, it's interesting because back up, 4 years prior, or the, previous election when Trump was elected, how many people you talk to who say, well, I only voted for Trump because he was the lesser of two evils.
Right, he wasn't Hillary.
Right. And so Trump kind of got into office on a I'm not saying that's how for sure. So
right, that's part of that. That's part of it. I would agree. I
don't need hate mail.
No, I think that's part of it. But I also think people wanted to elect somebody who was unlike anybody we've ever elected before. Elect somebody who's already a billionaire,
right? Who
can't be bought off, or at least not necessarily bought off.
Yeah. So I voted for. I voted for Trump the first time he was in office. Now I'm not super political. I didn't sit there and do years of research. I didn't go and watch every debate, and I will say I probably sort of half blindly walked in to vote. Right. My reason for ever supporting Trump in the first place was he's a self-made billionaire, so he knows what he's doing when it comes to running a business or multiple businesses.
Yep.
And he's gone through bankruptcy, he's gone through highs and lows, and somehow always comes out on top. So if he can do for our country what he did for himself, that was where he had my support.
Right.
And
right. It wasn't like you thought he was a wonderful guy.
No, and I didn't say, gosh, right. I don't know where he gets his tanning done, but I so want to go to that salon. Like, no, there was nothing about him where I was like, well, he's such a gentleman, and he's just, you know, he says the nicest things. And
so why did some of the things that he said that were being construed as either racist or misogynist, or, you know, the whole grab women by their whatever, that whole thing, why wasn't stuff like that you were hearing enough for you to deter you and say, oh, I'm not voting for that guy, I'm going with Hillary? Because Hillary was still worse to you at that point, even after all
well,
that.
Well, it wasn't that she was worse. That's not why I voted for. I didn't pick Trump because I thought Hillary was worse. Mm-hmm. I voted for Trump because of his background, because I felt his business background and the fact that he wasn't climbing the political chain. He stepped in. Right. Already self-made. Right?
Yeah, he's not a lifelong politician.
So that was why I voted for him the first time. So I really, again, all the stuff, all the dirt on Hillary, all the laptops, the emails, I don't even know what any of that stuff is. I don't really.
Is that important to you though, or do you not care a whole lot?
Yes and no. I think that there are things that we will never ever know. Mm-hmm. I absolutely believe our government is 100% capable of destroying anything, what's the word I'm looking for?
Sabotage?
Nope.
Deconstruct?
Nope. Anything that would make them look bad, right? So like anything like
covering up anything that's
so like if they're
discriminatory against them or
whatever. I don't even know what those emails were supposedly about that were sent, but whatever. Like if they wanted to hide evidence of something, they will hide the evidence of something, right?
Sure.
And then somebody's going to say, well, what happened to all those emails, or what happened to that, you know, manifest with all the people that went to the island, or whatever it is.
Right. Okay. The Epstein stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Whatever it is. If they want to hide it, they'll hide it. And they're going to try to hide it. And there's always going to be somebody who's trying to be the whistleblower and say this is real. It doesn't matter at this point, because just because it happened, no one's ever going to be able to prove it anymore. Right? Whatever.
Well, then they just kill the whistleblower.
Right.
Right.
Always. just like the movies.
Right.
But anyways, so yeah. So I is it important to me? Yes and no. But I think it's sometimes I feel like we put too much energy into, oh, well, it must be true, and we must find out. You're never going to find out. You're never, ever, ever going to find out. Mm-hmm. The truth will never, it may come to the surface someday, but chances aren't likely, and you're not going to find out in the next couple of months between now and the election time, so it's irrelevant. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's all still hearsay until evidence has been shown, but even nowadays, evidence is so like... it has to be something indisputable, like DNA evidence, and even then somebody could be like, well, it was tampered with. Whatever.
Exactly, right? And I agree with you on that. So then how do we live then? How do we make decisions? How do we, because no matter what side of that fence you decide to jump onto, you're still faced with that dilemma.
Right.
Even on the conspiracy theorist side, it could be this, it could be. Will you ever know for sure? No. The other side's like, oh no, I just trust the government completely. I think they have my best interest in mind, and they're always doing what's right for us. Do you know that for sure? No. Yeah. Will you ever know that for sure? No.
I mean, I guess I said, I just try to put effort into that. Like, is it true? Did it happen? Did it not happen? I don't know. And we may never know. And so to me, it's wasted. Right. I can only look at what I hear and see in the current, like the present, what's happening.
Like record, like for example, we have Biden and Trump running for 2024. Uh-huh. We have 4 years of each of them,
right,
to look at what they did and didn't do and the way things happened. So that's more concrete in a sense, as opposed to hearsay. Oh, did you hear that Biden's got ties with China and all that? It's like, yeah, but we don't know that,
right? And you could sit there and say, well, sure. I mean, there's stuff that is suspicious, but we're never going to know the truth. Mm-hmm. Like, I just don't think that. I think, like I said, if they want to hide it, they'll hide it. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I don't put it past anybody to kill anybody or get rid of someone who, I don't put it. I mean, maybe I've watched one too many movies. I don't know, but like, I don't put it past them. There is true evil in this world, mm-hmm. And people are so selfish and so anything to get to the top, anything to stay, you know. And I do believe that if they want to hide it, and if it takes even getting rid of people to do that, they will. So yeah, to me, it's wasted energy, and you can just look at, like you said, look at facts, look at you look at the economy we live in, right? You look at those kinds of things, like you look at tangible things that they can't like make you forget hundreds of years of data as far as like inflation and prices and you know, all this stuff. So yeah, I think that there's things like that you can.
But even then, they would potentially blame other people. Like if you go at Biden about the gas prices,
right?
He would say, no, it's because I inherited a bad economy from Trump, and I have to do all this stuff to get out of this. Yeah, that's what he'll say.
Yeah, so,
I'm not saying believe him.
He can say it, but like I said, you have to actually look at it and say, well, actually, if you started to see the shift this many months after you signed these things and changed these things. There's the kind of that period of time where, yes, it's not going to happen overnight and be like, well, the election was November 7th and by November 8th everything changed. No, that's not how it works. But but you see within the year, you know, the first year of things start to shift and change, and you know, we're coming in that fourth year, and it's like, we're seeing a lot of that. Is it all his fault? No, of course not. One person doesn't determine everything. I don't blame anybody who says I blame Joe Biden for XYZ. Okay, he didn't personally do all of that to you. Okay, but he may have been a piece of the chain of events that happened, but he's the face too. He's the face. He's just the face of it. And people blame the weather on people, and that's like saying it's Ronald McDonald's fault that they no longer have a dollar value menu. Ronald McDonald didn't do anything. He's just the dummy on the cover. Yeah. Right.
Well, you're bringing up some painful stuff there. That's the dollar menu at McDonald's is. That was a heartbreaker. Yeah. They said fast food prices in the last. What was I just reading? It said like in the last year. I mean, like huge. Yeah. It was one thing they said. Well, they're just going to go up even more now that they got to pay their employees $40 an hour. I can't remember the exact percentages, and I'm not going to do all the math, but it was one thing. It was like the beef chalupa, and I think it's funny because this is one of Asher's favorite things to get. But was like a year ago was like $1.99, and now it's like $5.69. Mm-hmm. It's insane to me. It's the price of horse meat. It's gone up a lot. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy though. Like just the price, and yes, it's again the whole fast food minimum wage thing is. Well, what's the thing? I think I sent it to you where that guy. It's a joke, obviously, but the guy's going first. It plays a clip of whatever Congress lady that was. It was trying to vouch for a $50 an hour minimum wage for fast food workers. Mm-hmm. It shows a clip of that, and it shows this guy going through a drive-through, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll take a double cheeseburger, large fry, and a soda." And he pulls up, and the guy's, "Okay, that'll be $478 and something cents." Yeah, well, and that's just and that's just it. And it's funny because I remember working at the restaurant 10 years ago when one of the minimum wage things was going. People were trying to sign the California minimum wage to go up to $15 an hour. Right. Because I don't remember what it was at the time, but they wanted it to go up a lot, several dollars, and it's really hard when you're in a kitchen full of younger people who don't necessarily understand and haven't lived through the effects of what will happen if the minimum wage goes up. Right. Okay. And so all they can think about is the now. Yeah. Well, I want to make $3 more an hour. Sounds great. Yeah. And I said, but as the older, wiser person working in this kitchen, I can tell you, minimum wage goes up. It was not a popular opinion in that kitchen for me to say, I am not in favor of raising the minimum wage, and I will not vote for that. Yeah. And to just kind of come across that with this. Did they get mad at you for saying that? I remember it really was kind of just a taboo topic. It was just you disagree with us and just don't, Did you ever have the opportunity to explain why you were against it? Yeah, I think there was a couple of the younger kids that, I was like mother duck, right. But that I could kind of felt like I could have reasonable, explain to them. But, it's not like you have long periods of time to sit and talk lots about it. But to just be able to say hey, you just have to understand, if this happens, everything's going to get more expensive. You might get your $3 more per hour,
but your milk's going to cost twice as much. Your gas is going to cost more. The restaurant's going to cost more for, because I could look at it through a family member's eyes who owns the restaurant. He's going to have to raise his prices or cut hours. And that was the other thing. Now, granted, we couldn't go to electronic service. It was one thing Cool Handlings didn't do, the tabletop kiosk thing for people to...
Which I don't really like that as much. Like we go to Red Robin, I got to do that. I don't like that. Maybe because I'm not techie and I get confused every time and I have to ask the guy, what do I push? I don't understand.
Yeah, well, because you're that old guy.
I am that old guy that doesn't understand technology.
But... yeah. But I mean, it was funny because that was the time where McDonald's and Taco Bell and like the fast food restaurants started putting the screens to order. Yeah. They started taking away the one or two cashiers at the front of the store, and they would say order at the menu there. Right? So they've already now eliminated 2 jobs because minimum wage was going up to $15 an hour. Well, now that it's $20 an hour, Yeah. And yeah, I think it's absurd that it's only fast food. Okay? Of all the jobs, because they were talking about how healthcare workers, people who work at schools, people who have these other jobs that are more important to society are making less than the guy who is working the drive-thru. Right? And I know there's a certain family member of ours who feels very strongly in favor of the fast food worker. But that's just it doesn't make sense. Like, tell me a world in which that makes sense, that someone who is there to help save your life. I'm not talking about the doctors, but maybe even the person who checks you in at the front desk. Right? They're making less per hour. The guy who drives the ambulance is making less. I don't know. How come they didn't get that kind of promise to more? I mean, they have this whole different kind of well, it's almost like a hierarchy thing where they're looking at it. They see it as bottom rung. For some reason, fast food workers are seen as the lowest of the low, which is, we're talking with who you're talking about. That's kind of their argument. Man, that's hard work. That's such hard work doing that. Yeah, nobody's arguing that it's not hard work. That's not the problem. But the problem is with entry level positions making a wage that a manager would make. Because then you're taking away, first of all, you're taking away the incentive to even improve. Right? There has to be entry-level positions. There has to be a bagger at a grocery store that a high school kid can start doing, making minimum wage. And the minimum wage should not be the same as a living wage. You should not be making a living wage at 16. You want to get your foot in the door somewhere. You show them you're a hard worker. You work your way up. Maybe when you're in your early to mid-20s, now you're making a living wage. Why? Because you put in your time. Right? You worked the burger flipping for a while, and now you're a regional manager of 6 McDonald's. Great. That's awesome. And all these businesses, with the exception of where I work, there's room to move up and get somewhere with it, by showing them that you're a good employee, you can be trusted, you show up on time, you do your work well, you don't cause any problems for anybody. You know what I mean? Those people get promoted. But the idea of the first day you start, you should be making a living wage? Yeah. That's crazy to me. That doesn't make any sense. Well, and even then, $20 an hour in California is not a living wage. It's not, I know. And it's also, you think that you get hired at $20 an hour, they would rather hire 3 people at, 15 hours a week than 1 person at 40 hours a week. Right. Because then they got to give them benefits. Right. So it's not like you're still going to have to work 3 jobs. Right. To, and all you're doing is prolonging the problem. Yeah. Well, it's like the whole system, it seems like it used to be designed to benefit the employee. Now it seems like that's not a care at all in their minds. Yeah. Like you said, if they'd rather hire 3 people at 15 hours a week, that person can't live off 15 hours a week. Right. They're like you said, they're gonna have to get other jobs. Right. And so then that comes back to like the whole I don't know, the 1% or whatever, right? You've got these, I'm not talking about the small franchise owners, and I'm not talking about this people who own small businesses. I feel sorry for the people who own small businesses because, okay, so now say you have, someone can go work at McDonald's and make $20 an hour flipping burgers. But somebody who works at the local mom and pop burger shop is only making $15.50 an hour, whatever minimum wage is. Because they're not a chain? Because they're not a chain restaurant, right? So now that mom and pop runs the risk of losing that employee to the $20 an hour place.
Right.
So they're going to be looking, so they have to kind of compensate their employees differently. Now, granted, I would rather work for a small family business, and that's personal.
Yeah.
That's because I like the personalness.
We can make up words. It's okay.
of that, knowing that you're working for a family. You know, I think there's something nice about that. But that's just me. I'm old school that way. But you have these company owners that whenever prices go, whenever their cost of goods goes up, they raise their prices to the consumer because they don't want to lose their profit margin. And I understand that they too need to make a living. I absolutely get that. But I don't think that their profit margin needs to stay as healthy as it is. Okay? You are a business person. You've gone to school. You've done the work. You've put in years of work. Yes, you're right. You should have a great big mansion overlooking the coast, whatever it is that your heart's desire is. Okay, you have that, and your kids have that, and your grandkids have that, and probably 10 generations could live off of you. You know what I mean? Like, right. You have it. So why do you feel the need to keep? Like that gap is just widening and widening. So I feel like when minimum wage goes up, all we're doing is widening that gap even further.
Right.
You know, they'll use that as a reason to hire less people because now they have to pay more wages. They use that as a reason to raise their prices because they have to pay more wages. Like, and so that they keep getting their percentage stays higher. And so that's the thing, right? The rich get richer and everybody else continues to just stay afloat, and we're losing that middle income wage. Like, it's just, we're broadening that gap even more. And so I read this really interesting article recently about, remember Arizona green tea?
Yes.
Okay, right. So we still buy it in the jugs every once in a while. But you remember we used to get it in the 90s. We'd go get that can.
Jar.
Was it the can?
Oh, the can too.
Yeah.
It was like a tall boy can.
Yeah, it was a tall boy can. It was like, it's teal color with the thing. Arizona iced tea, right? All those. And how much were those cans?
Oh, I don't know.
99 cents, right? 99 cents. Guess what you can still get 20 years later for 99 cents?
It's the same price?
Yeah. So they said that this family, this father and his 2 sons who own this Arizona green tea, and I may be getting the details wrong. Let me just disclose that right away.
Yeah. For the fact checkers.
Yeah. For those who are gonna critique me later. That's what I do. Everybody else, I take notes. And wrong again. I can't believe anything they say.
That's right.
But anyways, and then the article said the father and the 2 sons, when the tea was 99 cents back then, they made a lot of money. And then as the price of aluminum went up, they never raised their prices. They took the price of aluminum went up, and they took that out of their profit. And they had invested their money early in their real estate early in their boom, and they're living comfortably still.
Right.
They make a little less, but they're still selling the product. People still buy it for 99 cents. Now, granted, I'm sure it's marked up. Some places mark it up because they can.
Right. They probably take it. Hey, we can get this for cheap from these guys.
Whatever. This liquor store sells it for $1.20. But the thing was saying basically like 99 cents to still find somebody who hasn't raised their prices in 20, 25 years. Nobody does that.
Right.
But yet they did. Right.
Do you know why? Did you read the?
Because they felt it was more important that they didn't need they didn't need more money.
Right.
They
weren't being greedy.
They weren't being greedy. And so to see things and same with like In-N-Out, right? In-N-Out hadn't raised their prices in decades. And it was a big deal that they finally had to raise their prices. And even when they did,
wasn't much.
20 cents.
Yeah.
Right. It was as little as they could possibly do it so that the consumer didn't take the hit, but they could still help. You know, obviously I get it. You're a business. You can't pay your employees if you're not making money, but you also don't necessarily need to be a multi-billionaire who owns a bunch of hamburger chains. Yeah. Like, yes, you can. Yes, I'm sure being a CEO of a major company is hard work. I will not ever say that running a company is easy. You watch people get fired from doing this all the time.
Right.
However, someone who gets fired from being a CEO and gets a $20 million severance package, I'm sorry.
You're gonna be okay.
Yeah, you'd be okay if you got no severance package.
Right.
You know, like it's just I think that's just absurd how much the people at the very top get sometimes for when so many people, you've got the millions of worker ants down here doing all the job, and yet one person kind of is getting the credit for everything and making, 7 figures, 8 figures more 10 figures.
Yeah, and that's kind of the argument, and that's kind of where I do agree with some. I don't agree with the minimum wage going to 20.
Yeah.
But I do think that a lot of these major corporations and big companies, they don't need to make that much money.
Right.
But I also don't think that, I mean, it's like going to the pro sports, right? Or actors or these kind of things. Do they need to make, like the Friends? Do the Friends people need to make $1 million an episode by the end? Do they need $1 million an episode? Do they need to make $22 million a year? No, they don't need that.
Yeah.
But the money's coming in, right? With sports, like you look at like football, right? Football brings in billions of dollars.
Right.
So they pay the players a lot of money. Right? Like, what else are they going to do with the money? I mean, I'm sure there's other things they could do with the money. Well, charge less for tickets.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. So that takes me back to the whole, why do they make billions of dollars? Mm-hmm. Right? What came first? Overpaid sports players or overpriced tickets? Right?
Right.
Or the guy who's just the owner. So he makes millions of dollars every year just for owning something.
Right.
You know. And yeah, I get it. You have an investment. You purchased this mm-hmm. the ownership of this team. But it's just, you know, I would just, rather than seeing the minimum wage like go up or whatever, like it'd almost be nice to see the profit margin come down and the money go back into benefits to the employees. So right. somewhere like Starbucks that helps pay. Now I don't have personal experience with this, but to hear that Starbucks helps pay for college, mm-hmm. right? They Starbucks does offer some health benefits to their employees, even if they're not full-time, right?
Right.
I would like to see more businesses take care of their employees rather than increasing their profit margins for themselves. Rather than seeing the couple of head honchos getting richer, I would love to see, I think that's how I feel about mom and pop stores. I love to see that kind of small business, more personal, you know, people who know their bosses and the bosses know them, right? As opposed to being like, yeah, my district manager right. comes in once every 6 months and does the thing. Our friend said, telling us a story about the Costco. They were in Costco with their friend in the suit with his Costco tag right. on, and everybody thought it was a big secret shopper type thing with the big manager.
Right.
Because they don't even know who that guy is. Yeah. They just know he's a guy in a suit with a Costco badge, so he must be some secret district guy. So it's a surprise visit.
That's right.
Right? Because you don't know your boss. Like there's something missing there. So yeah. I mean, that's hard, and it's a tough thing. Like it could be. Great. You built a big business, a big booming business, and you have all of these things. But do you know? I guess I just wish companies and owners who start businesses had that mindset from the beginning. Mm-hmm. I want to take care of. I want my employees to always be happy. Right.
Right.
I mean, they talk about like I think Google is one of the places, and maybe Pixar. Some of these other big companies in the Bay Area, mm-hmm. their company, they have free snacks, and they have game rooms, they have childcare's included, and it is such a happy place to work.
They have yoga hour and
well, whatever it is, but like because they know that happy employees right. produce good work.
Totally.
Other countries, right, where they have 3 months of holiday a year. We get 2 weeks in America, but these other countries get like 3 months paid off, and they come back to or they work less than 40 hours a week. Right. And yet they're more productive.
Yes,
in
of course
30 hours than they would be in 40 hours.
Because their quality of life is better.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, or mandatory nap time. Oh, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Have a job that sends you home for 2 hours, take a nap every day.
Paid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just part of your day, part of your routine.
Love it.
So, things like that. And I think that's where we have it so messed up here. Like it's just, and it's so broken that there's no way to fix it. Mm-hmm. We're so, once you start down that path, you can't undo it. You're not going to find some guy who wakes up one day and says, I've got $19.5 billion in my bank account. And I just feel like giving it all away, And I'm not asking for a handout. I'm not one of those people who...
I am.
Who say, I just think that they need to just, if these billionaires would just write everybody a check.
Right.
Everything would be great. No, that's not fixing the problem either. Yeah. But I do think that we just need to find a way to close that gap by providing a better quality of life for the the peons at the bottom.
Right,
So
right.
Bethany for president 2028.
Yeah, I'll vote for you. I'll vote for you, babe.
So, anyways, yeah.
I'd be the first man.
That's true.
That'd be awesome. I'd be good at that job, I think. No?
I think I'd be a horrible president. I'm the queen of, I have really great ideas.
Yeah.
And I don't know I don't know how to even make that a thing.
Yeah.
Right? I dream big. That's my
That's your motto?
well,
That's your life
I would
goal.
say that's my weakness. They always say, they tell these kids like, oh, dream big, you can do anything. And I'm like, they've been telling me that my whole life. So I have all these great grand ideas, and they're like, how are you going to do it? I have no idea. And then it spirals me the other way.
Yeah, I go back and I say, we need to stop telling kids that crap because it's not true.
Yeah.
You can do anything you want as long as you just believe it. As long as you just believe in yourself. No, that's just not true.
Yeah.
Teach your kids to work hard and give it their best, give it their all, study hard, work hard, teach them all that. But don't tell them they can do anything as long as they believe hard enough.
Yeah, but somebody told these kids, and they would say, I want to be a YouTuber when I grow up, right?
Right.
I want to be famous for playing video games.
Yeah, and now they're doing that.
And now they're doing it.
Right.
So somebody's kid got it right. Oh.
Well, yeah, but not all of them, right? It's the same thing with like being a musician or whatever. Like I've told Aiden for years, I say, well, for every 5 that make it, there's 1,000 others that are just as good, if not better, that are never going to be signed. Yeah. It's just the way it is. I guess there's just too many of them now. But now that you can self-release stuff, that's kind of growing. You got a lot of artists that are getting bigger that way. But that's back to music, so we're not going back to music. So that was a cool one. Minimum wage. That's a good political topic. I wrote down a couple things as you were talking that can kind of be in the political arena. I don't know if we can go down these roads if you want. If not, that's okay. We could pick something else. But we were talking about women having it harder. You said that at some point, women having it harder than men. And then also I wrote down, because you mentioned about being a vegetarian, I wanted to talk about that too. So you want to tackle either one of those?
Can we hit the women's one?
Okay. So first of all, I'll just ask you if you believe that's true. Like, well, first of all, what do you even mean by that? Women have it harder.
Well, okay. First of all, that was me loosely quoting what someone else said.
Okay.
That was her platform for.
I don't even remember the context. What were we talking about?
Halsey, I think.
Oh, gotcha.
Said something about having to perform even though she was in the middle of a miscarriage. So, but yes, that I won't say harder. I think that being a woman is hard today. Okay. Because there is an expectation that if you work full time, you're a bad mom because you aren't home with your kids all the time. If you stay home with your kids, you're a bad mom because you're not contributing to the financial state of your house. You could be providing more.
But is it the same person that's making both of those critiques, or is it two different people? Well,
it could be two different people.
Okay.
But no matter what you do as a mom, I'll say just as a mom, and I can say even as a woman, just in general, I think people are always going to say that what you're doing is not good, right? You're a bad mom because you work. You're a bad mom because you don't. You're a bad mom because you bottle feed your baby. I wouldn't say I've ever really heard people say you're a bad mom if you breastfeed, but you're shamed if you do because you're not allowed to do it in public. You have to do it in a bathroom stall. Whatever. So I think that there's definitely a lot of shaming happening against, whether it's women against women or just society against women in that sense. I think that there was something else and I lost it.
I hate when that happens.
I know, it was good too. Yeah, so I think that being a woman is hard. I think we have it harder in a sense where if a woman sticks up for herself or for someone else, if she's assertive in any way, she's automatically labeled a B word. Automatically. Doesn't matter what she's saying. If she stands up for something, someone's going to sit there and say, oh, she's being such a you-know-what.
Well, what in what context, though? Like, give me an example if you think of something specific that a woman could be standing up for that she would be called that.
So if they just simply... Well, we were talking about a specific actress the other day, and where she was labeled as being difficult. And from what I understand, when she came and did an interview and somebody said, oh, I heard you had some trouble on the set of this TV show you were on.
We can name drop famous people. I don't remember who we were talking about.
We were talking about Katherine Hegel.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and she was on Grey's Anatomy, and she
yes.
left the show and was allegedly a very difficult person to work with. Mm-hmm. When she came out later and said, "This is why, because I said that I didn't want to work so many hours, and I, again, I wasn't there, so I don't know. But the fact that she gained this label because she kind of put her foot down and said, "No, I'm not going to work these long hours. I need to do these other things." So the answer is, I'm going to tell you no, and I'm going to set a boundary. I'm going to make some blanket statements, and I do not mean every and always, okay?
Gotcha.
But a lot of times, more often than not, I think when a woman sets boundaries and says, no, I'm not going to do this, and the other person says, she's just being such a you-know-what.
Right.
Because she set boundaries. And so as women, I feel that we are expected to just be in the supportive of everything all the time, no matter what. We're expected to say yes all the time, mm-hmm. right? Like, even if it's, well, you have all these things and your kids don't play sports. Like, well, no, I'm too tired. I do all these other things. I have all this stuff. Like, you're, again, go back to bad mom, right? But mm-hmm. you simply say, no, I know my boundaries and I know my limitations, and the answer is no. And then you get, scoffed at. Or even, I think even in marriage, like, I feel like that, even like that, if I simply say, you're like, oh, you want to do this thing? And I say, no. Why not?
Yeah.
And it's not that you think...
Well, it just makes me cry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's not like you're sitting there thinking I'm like the worst wife in the whole world.
No.
But just I just think in general, I think if we just simply say no. And so I feel like...
But it's just disappointing, right? I mean, like, it'd be the same like for you. Well, if you said, oh, do you want... Hey, babe, you want to go on this trip?
This is probably... I can't think of a good specific example, but... Being in the position I'm at where I'm a weird anomaly where I work full time, but I also homeschool and stay home full time. And so I'm like this weird thing.
It's called Superwoman.
Yeah, it's called burnout.
Yeah.
I'm on the verge of burnout every day. Part of that is I've had to learn my boundaries. And part of that was backing up 10 years ago when I was working out of the home mm-hmm. full time. And I was in a management position and I had my phone on me 24/7. And how many home videos do we have of me standing in a corner talking on my phone?
Oh, it was terrible.
Or we were doing something and my phone would ring and I'd have to leave.
I remember how exciting it was when you got rid of that position and you were told you didn't have to answer your phone anymore. It was like, oh, no way. But
being someone in the working world, right? So I would oversee truck drivers, and I worked in a man's world.
Right.
Okay. At the time, I was the only female in my position.
Sure.
It's interesting to see the company how much it's evolved over the last 10 or 15 years.
You're a pioneer, babe. You trendsetted.
But
trailblazer.
At the time, if I said this is how it has to be, because I was trying to be firm, right? I was walking that fine line between I have to tell them this is my expectation for you, mm-hmm. right? No different than you would with your job. But if a guy was in my position and said, look, guys, this is what we need to do. We need to go out and we need to do A, B, C,
right.
and I expect it done by 5:00.
Right.
Okay, and then those guys would be like, yeah, that guy's a jerk, but whatever, and they would just go and they would do it.
Sure.
Right. But a girl does it, and then they kind of like. I could say the same things. Okay, guys, we're going to go out today and we're going to make these deliveries and this is what we're going to do. And then I need you to always make sure you smile. I need you to get your signatures and I need you to make sure that you're on time. And if you're not, whatever, right? She's such a this. And then they would be disrespectful and they didn't respect what I was asking of them.
Sure.
Right. And I do feel like.
But would they do it?
Sometimes,
okay, but not always. Okay.
And then if they didn't, then I had to come back and be really aggressive, right? Because then, look, there is a consequence because you didn't do what was asked of you.
Right, like you're dealing with a little kid or something.
But I don't feel like if I was a man,
mm-hmm.
I would get the same, flack for that. Like, I felt like I had to work twice as hard to earn their respect. No other person would have to come back and ask those guys again and again and again to do the same thing because they would be asked once, they would get their consequence, they would either quit and move on or fix it. But
so
for me, it was
like
she's a woman. She doesn't understand. She doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Or
there's already a preconceived attitude of, well, it's just some woman. She's this woman telling me what to do or this kind of thing, as opposed to it's like maybe they feel it's more natural to them to have a guy be telling, which really doesn't make sense because they all, I'm assuming, grew up in households. I guess I shouldn't assume that.
with moms
yeah. and dads. So you kind of have both sides telling you need to do this, and if you don't, here's the consequence, and you're going to be in trouble, and all this kind of stuff. I mean, you know, maybe
because mom is different, right? Mom tells me what to do, but she's just mom at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Mom's the soft one. Dad's the one. When your father gets home, you're going to get a whooping, right? Like, you know, consequences come because the man is coming home. Right. Or mom, she tells you all day long, okay, you need to do this, okay, you need to do this, okay, and then she'll use the threat. If you don't do this when your father gets home, whatever, right?
He's gonna shoot you in the face with a bazooka.
Yeah, you know. So I mean, maybe that's part of it, and part of it, you know, I don't know. I think for me it was harder. Where I think. So I do think that as a woman in a quote unquote man's world, mm-hmm. I did have to work harder to earn that respect from those people. Right. So I think that okay. So then going back to that Halsey statement about, so as a working mom, okay, as a working woman, I too went through a miscarriage at my job. Right? Mm-hmm. It started when I was on my way to work one day, and I got to work and I called the doctor and did the whole thing, and I went to the doctor and it was a lot. And you know what I had to do the next day? I had to go back to work. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a stage to, you know, I didn't have millions of manners, but
that was your stage, though.
But I was expected to just, well, I'm going to say, women have to do it every single month, mm-hmm. right? We're on we put on our big girl panties, right. literally, right. and we go back to work every day, and we're expected to work through that. Yeah. Right? Where if you were having a menstrual cycle, if you woke up and you were bleeding, tomorrow, I do not think you would be like, "Yep, let me just shove a towel in there and go to work."
Well, no, because I would see it as a sign of a serious medical problem.
But you know, it's like I come home from the hospital and I've literally just birthed a 9.5 pound, almost 10 pound human being. Yeah. And the next day I come home and I have a 2-year-old at home waiting for me, and I have to pick her up and I have to take care of her and have to run a household. Right. And I'm expected, and it's expected of me. Not expected. I don't say like, you weren't just like, woman, get back in the kitchen. Right. But you know, it's just this thing. Society just kind of has this expectation, and it's whether it's women put it on ourselves, or society puts it on us, or a combination of both. But we just come home and we pick up and we carry on and we do the things. And there's always the jokes about when mom is sick, she gets up and she still takes care of the house. Right. And I can tell you 2 times in my life where I've been so sick I couldn't get out of bed. And that's only happened to me twice.
Yep. I remember both times.
Exactly.
Bronchitis and
the Rona.
Yeah, yeah.
The first time I had it. The second time I had it, I carried on. Yeah. I was busy recovering from an appendicitis. Right. So.
Well, no, I mean, and I've said this so many times, I think, that's why I hate when people use the term, does your wife work? Does your wife... Now, I know what they mean. Yeah. They mean, does she work outside of the home?
By someone else.
But your wife works. Yeah. Like, I mean, I look at you and I see you doing your job and your 2 side hustles you do, and you got 4 kids, and you got me to take care of, and all the stuff. I'm not envious. I don't look at that and go, man, you know, they have it so easy. I wish I could be a woman, because, man, that'd be really, you know, of course, these days I could be a woman if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I have no desire to have that role, because I know it's hard. You don't get to escape. Yeah. I get to escape. I get to be like, all right, babes, 9 o'clock, I'll see you later. I'll be home for dinner, you know? Yeah. And I know it's hard, but for me, and this is where you and I might disagree, and I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, I don't think the problem is the child rearing and the being a wife. I think the problem is that we're adding into the mix the outside work, because now you have so much to do that the being involved as a mom and a husband and a wife to your husband becomes so much harder and stressful, because you're trying to do that on top of all this other stuff you got going on. Like you've talked before about being able to work from home, which a lot of people would see as a huge blessing. But you have said, and I agree with you, that a lot of that is really difficult because you don't just get to work. Mm-hmm. You're working and you hear, hey, mom, or you hear me, hey, babe, whatever. And you got all this stuff going on, or you got, the dog and you got this. And
even when people aren't necessarily talking to me, I'm surrounded by clutter, dirty dishes, and I see these things in front of me. So I can't just shut that off. I wish I could. I wish I could just close it, my mind off to everything, the chaos happening around me.
Sure.
The problem is it's always around me. Whether you guys talk to me or don't talk to me, it's still there. You know.
Right.
I'll even be sitting at my desk, and if this probably happened even if I was at an office, my desk starts to look messy. I could sit there and get so distracted cleaning my desk, and I'm like, oh shoot, I missed 2 emails. I got to get back to work, or whatever. So
right.
Yeah. I mean, I would say part of it is it is modern day society.
Yes.
Because of that, but I just think that because some women set the trend that you can have it all.
Right.
That we all have this burden of
we're
supposed to have it all.
Right.
And we can't have it all, and you can't juggle it,
Well, and now we're stuck too, in a sense, because in order for a wife and mother to just be a wife and mother and not be working a job, it's almost impossible, especially in this state.
Once you open that can of worms,
that's what I'm saying. It's like a position that we're just in now.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I guess when we look back to the 60s and the 70s when all that kind of started, do you believe that was a good thing that we started bringing that in, or was it detrimental to kind of the family unit?
First of all, I think it goes back
even farther
because I think it goes back. Well, actually, I think it goes back way farther. But I think during World War I and World War II, when the women were expected to come into the workplace, and then when the men came back and they were expected to just go back and stay home. So I think that was kind of like you get a taste of something.
You mean when they came to help with war efforts?
Right.
And then,
or working. They had to take over all the jobs.
Right.
Right? There was nobody there to run
because
the
all the men were out
checkout
fighting.
stand at the grocery store, so a woman had to step in and do the job or whatever. Women had this they were needed for a totally different purpose. Right? And it probably fulfilled something in them to have that, which as a modern day working mom, I get that. There's a sense of fulfillment, and it's a different kind of, it's probably totally wrong, right? But it's true. You just kind of have this like, oh, I'm important. I'm needed. Mm-hmm. I have this thing and they need me to do this. And it's not a thankless job like my children. It's a thankless job with my children. I expect you to feed them and house
But see,
them.
I think that's a problem too, because I don't think you should feel that way.
By my family?
Right. Yeah. I think you should feel that we appreciate you so much.
Yeah.
That should be happening. So, I mean, I don't think the reason you feel that way is because of doing that job.
Yeah, no, for me personally, it's probably just a combination of things. But I think that's where it kind of stemmed from. I think women during war times kind of got that, and then they were expected to just go back to just being at home all the time. Right? And they were kind of like, well, but I kind of liked working. Like, it was nice.
Think that kind of put the fire under their butts?
So I think that sort of started that. Okay. And then when the feminist movement started and it really started to progress forward. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's part of it. I do think it's absolutely possible for families to live on one income. We know several families close to us that do.
That's right.
The key, though, is that they started as single income families and stayed that way. So you learn to live within your means differently.
Right.
Our situation was a little backwards. We were a single income family in the very beginning. But I had an opportunity I was working a very, very, very part-time job, just doing some data entry a couple hours a week.
Right.
And then it turned into an offer for full-time employment.
Yeah.
And for us at that time, it was huge.
Right.
For us. And so we decided at that time to take that opportunity, and then you would stay home.
Right.
And
we were still a single income.
We were
family,
a single income family for a while. But it just kind of happened where we just sort of became a dual income family, and we've never been able to go back.
Right.
And so that's just, I think had it just stayed one way and you stayed home full time, that would be, it would be different. We would, but then again, our life.
But then I was offered this amazing opportunity.
Were you?
Yeah. In the beginning, very promising.
Which job?
For the city. Very promising in the beginning. The city job. Fantastic.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Very promising.
True. You're right. I was like, you weren't offered anything. Nobody knows.
Not offered. But
we found this job.
The opportunity came up, and I jumped on it.
That's funny. I don't remember Who mentioned it to you?
I do.
Who?
It was a smoking hot chick.
You're not talking about me.
I am.
Did I just find it?
Yeah,
And I
you
was
saw
like,
it in the paper or something, or you saw it somewhere.
in the paper. Wow.
Yeah, that's how long ago it was. It was 2007, 2008.
That's true. It was right before I had Addie.
Yeah. Yeah, you saw it somewhere.
Well, because at the time it was going to mesh with, I think the offered hours, I think kind of matched what my current job was, because I was working in the morning. So I thought it was a good way to have dual income without being gone all the time.
Right.
Little did I know my job would just get worse, and so would yours. And then we would just never see each other. Yeah. But,
and that's why we're living the fairy tale dream we're living now.
And again, once you start down that path, going backwards is just, you just become accustomed to a certain standard of living.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I mean, if you told me we had to sell this house and go back to living into our 900 square foot little 2-bedroom house, it was a fine house for us at that season of life.
Yeah.
But you tell me now, after I've lived in this house, wait a minute, I don't want to give up this.
But see, you're right. And that goes right back. And this is what I've said before about the CEOs.
Yeah.
They're making billions of dollars. Yeah. They have become used to living the $1 billion lifestyle. So to tell them, oh, no, you just get to make $500,000 a year. Wait, what? I got a Porsche payment to make. I got a 50 whatever, I got a lot of money I got to pay for stuff. Yeah. I'm used to this luxurious lifestyle. I got to pay the mortgage on my yacht, So,
well, women have it harder, I think. Again, you go back to a stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. It's an expectation. Well, you're a mom. You should be staying home with your kids, right?
You don't think it's an expectation for the man to be the breadwinner, though, to take care of the family financially?
If you see someone, and you see the stay-at-home dad, they're like, oh, that's so great that he, like, it's like this, it's like, I feel like it's more frowned upon for a woman to stay home and not work than it is for a man to stay home.
Oh, totally. In our society today, absolutely. Stay home,
yes. Oh, he's such a good dad, and he stays. Look at that dad taking his kids to the park. Isn't that so great? Mm-hmm. And you see a mom doing the same thing, and it's just like, whatever.
Why does she get a job?
Right? Well, I mean, not necessarily that to that.
No, you're
but
right.
But it's just it's like, well, so what? So she's a mom at the park with her kids. Who cares?
Yeah.
But yet a dad does that, and it's like, oh, he's like this hero.
Right.
Isn't it so? Yeah. Isn't it so great? Well, it's not. So I just feel like we have a double expectation of, darned if you do and darned if you don't, mm-hmm. whether you stay at home or work or both, or try to do this hybrid thing or whatever. We just, that's why I say it's we have it harder in that sense. I feel like the pressure is harder, but again, I think flip it, way back to, working has always been something I think that's ingrained in a woman. I don't think Eve was standing by next to Adam while he was pulling those weeds saying, you missed a spot. But she was there working side by side with him from the beginning, homesteading all through the...
Oh, but see, that's the argument, right? That's not the argument. The argument is not so much women should never do anything. They should just sit on their butts and do nothing.
Yeah.
The argument is more, should women be working outside the home?
Well, see, that's just the way we don't homestead like we used to, right?
Correct.
So a woman used to garden and can and of course cooking took all day because you'd have to start in the morning by churning your butter and milk.
You'd have to walk 12 miles to get wood to get your fire going so you could boil water and make soup.
A little bit exaggerated, but there was everybody had their household chores and they would all pitch in, and the kids would pitch in, and the husband, and they all kind of had their duties, right? But when those things didn't happen anymore, now you don't necessarily. We live in the suburbs now. We don't live out in the country, and we don't grow our own veggies, and we don't milk our own cow, and we don't do all these things. So now we have to have money to go to the market to do those things. And so I think just as a society, we've just kind of changed the way that we get those consumables. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I always go back to the Proverbs 31 woman. Mm-hmm. She worked. Now, it doesn't say she put on a suit and grabbed a briefcase and went to the office.
No, but she's also praised for her, like what she was doing it wasn't hindering her first priority, right? For lack of a better word. And I'm always hesitant to pick the right word here because I know it's a
my trigger word.
Yeah, it's a testy area. But it doesn't say that the Proverbs 31 woman was like, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to get out there and make a name. I'm going to be an outside worker. No, it was like, I'm able to do this, and I can sell some goods outside the house at the same time to bring in some extra income or some bartering or whatever.
Right.
Sure.
Again, there's this on this woman where there's this double standard where she's praised for being a great mom and keeping the house and doing all the things, and also being, juggling. She's praised for juggling work, whatever that job is, whether it's selling, clothes in the marketplace, braiding hair, whatever, or raising up their children. Right. But she's the woman who is praised, the woman who can juggle it all. Right?
Yeah, but I don't think that she's not the only woman praised in the Bible. I think that's just specifically, and I don't think necessarily those things are being praised together. It's just two separate things. I think you could have left off the last couple chapters of that verses of Proverbs 31 where it's talking about her working out, selling outside the home. And she still has all the praise for being a wonderful mother and wife. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it has to be that with it. I think that with her, it's just an extra thing, which again, I think is like, if I was to look at you and say, oh, you're able to take care of the household, you're able to take care of the children, take care of your husband, and you're able to do this stuff. Yeah. Does that make you more exemplary? Yeah. That makes you amazing, right? That's Superwoman, like I've said, I've called you that on here lots of times, by the way.
But nobody talks about the part. Nobody talks about the part where on Proverbs 32 where it says, and then she had
a nervous breakdown.
Because she realized she couldn't really do it all.
Right.
Sure.
And I don't think she's designed to do it all. I don't think neither do I think men are designed to do it all. I think men and women are designed specifically. It's so funny saying what I'm saying right now is so normal, but it's like it gets you in trouble. Men and women were designed to completely complement each other, right? We're different for a reason. That's on purpose, right? God did that on purpose. He said, here's the male figure, here's the female figure, here's the father figure, the mother figure. These two are going to unite and they're going to start a family. And the woman is going to have strengths that the man doesn't have. The man is going to have strengths that the woman doesn't have on purpose, right? Because we're not designed to exist void of each other. Right. I know that this day and age, it's all about, I don't need no woman. I can live my life just fine by myself. And the women, screw man. I don't care. I can, I don't need no man in my life. I'm doing just fine. You're not doing just fine. And you know it. Yeah. Neither one of you are doing fine. If you're honest with yourself, you're just not, because you're missing a crucial component of who you are when you don't have your significant other. That's just, because you're going against design, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So.
Now, what about like the situation where maybe the woman has been staying at home with the kids, and then her spouse is no longer in the picture, whatever the circumstances, abandonment, death,
she has to do something,
something, right? And it's a real problem in our society where marriages fall apart for lots of reasons. I don't say fall apart. Sometimes it is circumstances no one has control over, right?
Usually not, but yes, there are deaths.
There are times where a woman has just left she's widowed.
Yes, of course.
And she has a family to take care of still. And now I feel like, again, this is me. I feel like when I say women have it harder, we have to pick up and now go from I've been home with my kids for 15 years. I have no job experience. How am I supposed to find something? You have this fear of how do I take care of my family if my husband isn't in the picture anymore?
Sure. Right.
I don't think a man has to think about that. He doesn't think to himself, because in your mind, if I was gone one day and I died tomorrow and you're a single dad now and you've got 2 teenagers at home, you're not going to sit there and say, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. No, you're going to go to work and you're just going to, the kids would just, well, they're old enough now, they homeschool themselves. Like,
it'd be no big deal at all. I just go on with my life like nothing.
You know what I mean? You would just be like, well, that's fine. That's not what I mean. No, I just mean like, you would just, when your grieving period was over,
right,
and you took off the black veil, you would go back to work and you would just be like, all right, the kids are going to go to my mom. We're going to pretend the kids are not teenagers. They're 4 and 6 now. They're not 14 and 16.
Right.
But you would just be like, well, my mom will step in and take care of them, or I'll put them in school, or I'll, But
wouldn't it be the same thing for the woman? Like, you'd have to work outside the home.
But you've never had the fear of, I don't have income and I don't have skills.
Oh, it's the skills aspect.
Right. So, like, for a woman to try to walk into a workplace and be like, I've been unemployed for the last 15 years.
Right.
I don't know how to do anything modern day. I'm really good at scrolling Instagram, and I know how to, work Netflix.
Yeah, but women have done it. I mean, women have done it. First of all, I'll say that. I can cook
and I can clean.
Yeah. So the scenario where the father, for whatever reason, like whether it's death or let's say he's just a loser and he decides to leave his family or whatever, he finds some younger model and he goes off that direction. Now that in and of itself is a broken, like that man has broken the way things are supposed to be going. So now you have a woman trying to function within a broken system, right? So yeah, that's not ideal. That's going to be hard. That's going to be difficult. She's going to have to find some way to make it for herself and her family.
Right.
And then I think she's going to have to do things that are outside of what is designed, right? Just like anything, like any situation where you say, well, what if we take out that component? Like if I'm born with 2 arms, I live with 2 arms for 30 years, and then I get an accident and I lose one of my arms. Now I have a broken system, but I'm still going to have to figure out some way to live my life with only 1 arm. It's going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to figure it out.
But my point is that in those 2 scenarios, the woman has it harder because she's been
than the man.
In your perfect family where the wife stays home and takes care of the kids and does the things at home, and the husband goes off and works, and you have your cleaver family. Okay.
Yeah.
So in that situation, she has it harder because when he's not in the picture anymore, she has to pick up and carry on and make up for something else that wasn't there before.
In some ways, yes, I agree with you.
So if June Cleaver decided to leave, and it's just, what was the dad's name?
Ward.
Okay, so it's just Ward and the boys. Well, he would just pick up and, he would be sad she was gone. Hang on though. I don't agree with you. I think it'd be hard in different ways. Like what you're saying, and I agree with you, it'd be harder for the woman. Let's say that all she knows is keeping the home. Well, obviously she's not going to bring in an income from keeping the home, so she's going to have to, unless she can find somebody to give her money for nothing, she's going to have to go out of the home and make money to feed her family, right? And maybe she has no skills in that area. She's gonna have to relearn all these skills, okay? But from the dad's perspective, let's say all he's been doing is working 9 to 5, going to work. He comes home, he plays with the kids. He doesn't cook meals. He doesn't take care of the house. He doesn't really know how to nurture the children. He doesn't know any of that. So he's also going to have to learn things he doesn't know how to do, right? Now he's going to have to start finding a way to get food on the table, unless he just goes and finds some other wife or something, But the same could be said for the woman. She could go find a husband who would support her financially, and the family would carry on as a unit again, right? So I agree with what you're saying. I don't think it would be as easy for the man as you're making it sound. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I disagree. I think I'm right.
Okay.
So
you are right.
I know.
Yeah.
I do, and I think for a woman with children to remarry is probably a lot harder than
a guy finding a wife.
Yeah, I think that's harder too. I think
because she has kids already.
Because you're asking for a man to come in and take over responsibility for not just marrying a woman because he loves her or whatever, because he thinks she's hot or whatever, Right. He's marrying her and he's accepting responsibility of other response. He's accepting responsibility for other human beings also, and not just he's accepting her and her offspring. Where a woman going into a relationship with a man who has kids, he's so great. He's a single dad and he's so involved and he's at all their sports things. And so she sees that as something wonderful that she's joining into, and not necessarily extra mouths to feed and extra, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think the mentality
the widowed man is more desirable than the widowed woman.
Correct.
With children.
Again, it goes back and falls under that umbrella of where women and when I say harder, I don't just mean we're so oppressed and we're so whatever. But I just do. I think it's just, we have it harder. The expectation is different. I think it just is. Go back to women shaming women over it, men shaming women over it. I think that it just happens more often against a woman than not.
Okay.
So.
All right. One last thing before we leave the political.
Hit me.
You mentioned this earlier. Breastfeeding in public.
Yes.
You think that should be totally allowed completely? Like women should just be able to lift their shirts up in the middle of the mall? Or do you think?
No, I don't. There are ways to discreetly breastfeed your children.
Yeah, like the hooter hider?
Yes.
What's the real word for that? The bajorn? No,
that
bajorn
was the
something
carrier.
else.
That was the carrier.
There's a word for it. The curtain that comes over to...
But even before that, women would just... There's nursing shirts. There's blankets. Right. We've always, and it's just an appropriate, I know there are some women out there who have no problem just letting it all hang out when they feed their babies.
Right.
I am not one of those women.
Do you have a problem with the women that do that, though? Like, do you think they shouldn't be doing that? I
have been around some that are a little too forward in their breastfeeding in public. I mean, they literally just walk... they literally lift up their shirt and let their walking child come up and nurse on their exposed breast. I'm like, well... So that made me feel uncomfortable.
Right.
I felt like, but I thought maybe that's just me. I don't know. But I don't necessarily think that that's an appropriate thing to do in a place, especially with men,
right.
Around.
Well, that kind of changes the game, I think. When
and I would say these things happen maybe like at play groups and things like that. Sure. Where it was just the women.
Yeah.
So I don't know that she would just go to the mall and do that. I have no idea. I didn't spend enough time with her.
Right.
But I think that, I think there should be no problem. You shouldn't be shamed for feeding your kid. I do think you should be respectful. I think you should be respectful of the people around you and know that whipping it all out could make someone feel uncomfortable. It could make a young child ask questions to their mom that maybe aren't yours to be setting that up for.
Sure.
Or
which is all societal, right? Because in some societies across the world, it's totally normal.
Well, sure, yeah.
But since it's not normal here, it might be a problem.
Right. Yeah. And that breasts are absolutely seen as a sexual object to 99% of America.
Right.
I think that we need to be, again, respectful of that and just know that there are men who could be looking at you differently, or women looking at you differently.
Sure.
Because you are exposed like that. I do have a problem with people who sit there and think it's gross. I will never understand that.
What, just breastfeeding in general?
Yeah. They think, it's disgusting. How could you just feed your kid out in public like that? Really? Like, do you walk up in nature and you see a baby cow nursing on its mom? People go, look at the baby cow.
Yeah,
it's so cute. But if you have a human baby nursing on their mom and they're like, ew, that's so disgusting. So I just, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But, I think breastfeeding in public is, I think it's awful that some places still don't really, workplaces especially, don't offer a breastfeeding area. I went through that working. I worked in a disgusting warehouse where there was not even toilet paper most of the time. So I would have to go to the nearest gas station, which tells you how disgusting the bathroom at the warehouse was. Yeah. That a gas station bathroom was cleaner and more well stocked.
And who was that Aiden used to have with you during that?
No, not Aiden. Aiden wasn't breastfed. He's our only bottle fed baby.
So who was it then?
Addie and Asher, both of them.
You still worked at the warehouse when they were born?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Addie was in kindergarten, I think, when I finally stepped down out of that position.
Gotcha.
But I would sit in the car to pump when I was at work because they didn't offer me. There was there was nowhere.
Well, it was a man's world, like you were saying before,
warehouse, but,
right?
And so it was not an ideal setting, and so again, I don't expect them to be like, well, we're going to build on this whole comforting, beautiful padded room with nice lighting, and it'll be so sanitary. We're going to make this place.
Little TV in there, foot spa.
And I didn't expect that, so I wasn't going to be out there suing them because they didn't provide me a place to nurse or to pump. I'm sorry, pump at work. Mm-hmm. But it was awkward. It was uncomfortable to try to be a working breastfeeding mother and not have it. So like some places where they're like, oh, we provide you a nursing mother's room. Right? Like, I think Disneyland has the baby center, and they're like, it's a great place to come and have a private place to nurse your baby. Well, I'm sorry. Junior's not going to wait the 25-minute walk from the back corner of the park until I get to the front spot so that I can sit in a private room behind a curtain and feed my baby. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to find the nearest bench, and I'm going to throw a blanket over my shoulder, and I'm going to feed my baby. Right. Because you don't ask a bottle feeding mom Could you not stick that bottle in your baby's mouth? It's disgusting to watch that baby suck on that nipple. Like, that's gross. Like, take it, go sit behind a curtain.
Somebody might say that.
You know? So it just, stuff like that. Like, it's unfortunate that I think that I think that there is a certain kind of like.
So you think it should be allowed in public, but you also think women should be discreet about it.
Right.
Okay.
You know, I mean, and you can't always control when Junior kicks off the blanket and whoops or whatever. But I mean, at least I'm trying, you know, to do that. But yeah, I think that it's completely wrong for people to sit there and shame those moms for doing that there, you know, because they do. And they'll make comments out loud to you. Well, not to you.
To someone else
about you. Women will say it out loud as they walk past you. Right? Like, and it's happened to me before. They'll just say like, I can't believe that she's doing that right
Really?
now.
About you?
And it's like, okay, whatever. Like, I could just let that roll off because I don't really care.
You don't jump up and get ready to throw down?
I would never sit there.
Hold my baby.
Yeah. But, you know, I mean, again, I've bottle fed and breastfed, and I've been a working mom who's had to pump at work, and I've been a stay at home, you know, like I feel like I've been on both sides of that, and I would never shame someone for doing or not doing, or public or not public. And I just don't think it's fair to shame a breastfeeding mother for breastfeeding in public. I would never say bottle feeding mothers should be held to the same standard as breastfeeding mothers, because you know, that's, you know what I mean? That'd be absurd.
No, I'm with
how
you.
dare you feed your baby that bottle in public, you know?
Yeah.
Like, go sit over there on that bench and hide under a blanket while you bottle feed your baby.
Right.
Or better yet, go sit in the dressing room and in that store, because that's where you should be.
Well, because their issue, it's an issue I disagree with.
Exposure.
Is indecent exposure, right? Yeah, exactly. A bottle is not nudity.
Right.
Right. But again, I think it's societal, because that is, God designed that for that purpose. They weren't designed necessarily to be sexual objects or even to be seen that way, even though that's kind of what they've become. And that's why it's a problem. But
nobody has a problem of taking a picture of all the little baby piglets nursing on mom at the same time.
Right.
That's cute.
Yeah.
But you see,
because that's not sexually appealing. Well, I'm sure it is to some freako out there.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just nature. It's natural,
right.
And it's just So I just feel like that's something that is unfortunate, but true. So
cool. All right, 2 sections down. Let's jump into some spiritual stuff. So just walk me through. That's right to have people start. I know that I already know your story, but just kind of start from the beginning. Have you always believed in God your whole life? Is there ever a time where you remember being an atheist at all?
I don't think I was ever an atheist. I was born into a Jehovah Witness family. My parents were both Jehovah Witnesses. So I was raised the first little over 10 years of my life, my childhood, with my yellow book of Bible stories. And
is it yellow? Was that a Jehovah Witness thing?
It was their Bible story book, their children's
Was
Bible
it called
stories.
The Yellow Book?
No, it was
Bible
just,
story?
it was literally a yellow.
It was yellow.
The cover was yellow. It was yellow binding, like the whole thing was yellow with red. Mm-hmm. The red, children's Bible story is printed on the front.
Okay.
And so that was how I learned the basic Bible stories. It's like I've known, all of the basics from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And so, so I had that. And then somewhere around the time before I turned 11, I just know it was before I turned 11, when my parents, I would say, defected. So I keep coming back. When my parents left,
right?
When my parents left the church, I remember going out to celebrate my first birthday, which was my 11th birthday.
Okay.
I remember because we got to pick the restaurant we went to. My parents took just me out to dinner, and I picked Red Lobster.
Nice.
And I remember I was like, well, I'm 11 now. I can order off the adult menu. I don't have to order off the kids menu.
What'd you get?
And I wanted clam chowder because I loved clam chowder. And I wanted clam chowder and a salad. I think I had a salad. But I remember they said, do you want a cup or a bowl? And I was like, I'm 11. I'll take a bowl.
Bring on the bowl.
I will take a bowl of clam chowder. Mm-hmm. And I could not finish the food that I had.
Nice.
So I do have that memory of that. So
was that a nice dinner though? I mean, I didn't know your parents ever did stuff like that, taking just one of you out.
That was probably the only time in my life they did that I remember. Maybe later in my teen years they would try to do that stuff with everybody at some point, but I think for them it was the first time that we got to celebrate a birthday. It was the first time that we got to celebrate a birthday. So I think that was probably just a big deal to them to get to do that with us. So I don't remember.
Did they do it with all the other ones?
I don't remember. Yeah, I have no idea. So yeah. So, and then I had my first Christmas that year.
Okay.
So.
Do you have good memories of being a Jehovah Witness for 10 years, or? I
think there were. Yeah, because I talked earlier about the families that we were super connected with when we lived in Portland area. And so it was probably honestly very similar to our kids, like growing up with our close friends who all met at the same church. And we, and so our kids, we just do these events together and we do life together, right? Like I couldn't imagine not having these other families to be part of your community. Yeah. So we had a really good community when we lived in Oregon. And so I have really good memories, but they're the just the community as a whole. I remember it being not understanding why we didn't do certain things. Like I remember when Christmas would come around. So I remember Halloween, all the kids would go to do the Halloween party and the Halloween parade, and everybody would dress up at school and they'd march through the classrooms and do the whole thing. Oh, yeah. And I remember me and one other kid in my class were Jehovah Witnesses, and we would have to go sit in the library during that time. I remember there, every day, the Pledge of Allegiance, and we would just not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We would just...
See, when I was in elementary school, the Jehovah Witness kids I knew, they were allowed to stand.
Yeah, but
they couldn't put their hand over their heart, and they couldn't say the words.
Right. Maybe we stood. Okay. I don't remember specifically, because I have a distinct memory of kindergarten. There was a kid in my class in kindergarten, and so all of my memories of we couldn't do this, it was that specific kindergarten class are the ones that are imprinted. Probably because it was the first time in my life that I had gone through that. Right. And so my first, so then Christmas was never a big deal until I started going to school. And so when I started going to school, everybody else was talking about Christmas and doing this about Christmas. And so I went home, and this was the first time I heard about Santa, right? It was from my friends at school.
You're like, wait a minute.
So I go home and I'm like, Mom, how does Santa, I know my mom would always tell me, anyways, I remember telling her, Santa, how does he know not to come to our house? Right. And my mom said, well, honey, Santa's not real. And I said, oh.
Just straight up.
Yeah. She's like, well, how could, how else it doesn't make any sense how he could go to all these places. Just, really think about it logically. He's not real. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I get all that, Mom. Santa's not real. But seriously, how does he know not to come to our house? I mean, if he was real, how would he know not to come to our house? And if he did come to our house, how would he get in? We don't have a fireplace. We have a wood stove. So then my mom went on this whole thing and told me about how Santa has a magic key, and so my mom gave up on the whole trying to teach me that Santa.
Oh, so she started to answer the questions
because
of how
she gave up because I was so persistent.
That's so
she
awesome.
She says he's not real, and I was like, yeah, but how does he do all these things? Yeah, but he's not real. Yeah, but still, I couldn't. My brain, my 5-year-old brain could not wrap around the fact that there was no such thing as Santa. Right. But it was my first exposure to Christmas was being in public school and learning all about Christmas and Christmas traditions. And so, so then just different memories. Just I don't really remember it being even not doing the things that my classmates were doing. I didn't really think it was horrible, but I wasn't the only one, and I was really young. So the whole Christmas thing, it wasn't a big deal to me. Yeah. Okay, Santa's not real, whatever. But seriously, tell me how it really works. I was just curious. Right. I think I was curious.
But up to 9 or 10, you figure if you got to be that 1 or 2 kids that has to go to the library during the Halloween parade, or you have to, not pledge allegiance, you stick out, right? Yeah. I mean, that's got to be kind of nerve-wracking. Yeah,
but I don't really remember ever really feeling like that because it was, it wasn't just me. I had my sister was there. And so, and there was other families that went to that same school. So I don't feel like we were ever really alone. And the teachers were always very nice about it.
Sure.
They weren't, they didn't make you Like,
they're like, this loser Jehovah Witness.
Yeah. Or, they didn't try to draw attention or make a big deal of, like, or anything like that. So
well, they have to respect the religious beliefs.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like it was, it wasn't anything terrible. If anything, I remember when we would go door to door.
So your parents used to take you kids with them?
Yeah. Well, sometimes we would go with my parents, and sometimes we might go with another adult.
Okay.
That would
because all the times they've come to our doors in my lifetime, I don't remember any kids ever being with them.
Yeah, I don't know if that's if it's regional. I really don't know the rules about it.
Yeah.
You'd have to ask somebody who's still a practicing Jehovah Witness what the rules and regulations are.
I hope to get one on the show sometime, but it just hasn't happened yet.
So when we would go door to door, I would get excited, and I couldn't wait to be the one to like pass out the tracts, and I wanted to be the one to talk. I wanted to be the one to knock on the door and like
really,
make sure to give them their Watchtower magazine and and of course obviously the adults I was with would always do the talking, but I wanted to be like, I was excited for me checking those boxes. I'm a doer. I'm a me. Yeah. Give me all if I can earn a gold star, I will do it. Right? If there is a prize for knocking on the most doors, I was going to win that prize. Like right. I didn't care about winning people for Jesus. It was about winning people for checking my boxes,
right.
Right. So that was, I was definitely started out as an overachiever early in life, wanting to, I don't know what you call that, not an overachiever, but
ambitious,
yeah.
So when your parents decided to leave the church, did you, having grown up in that's all you really knew. Mm-hmm. Did you have questions for them, or were you just so excited about birthdays and Christmas that you didn't care? Yeah,
so we moved out of our community from Portland, and we had a very close community of friends. We were really plugged into the Kingdom Hall that we were going to, and like just that whole group. And so when we moved, there was already kind of a disconnect from that group, and so there was a sadness of leaving that group of people. Mm-hmm. And so then we moved to the Bay Area. I remember going to maybe 3 different schools during that time. Like, I feel like we moved a couple times. So I don't remember ever really plugging back in. So for me, the loss wasn't leaving that religion. It was just, we left that community and we moved. And then there was a season of like a couple of years of never really getting plugged back in anywhere. And we weren't going to the Kingdom Hall regularly. We weren't knocking on doors. We weren't doing anything. So we weren't really plugged into anything anymore. So there really wasn't any kind of like loss of feeling. I already went through that when we left Portland.
Right.
So when it was, by the time we did that, now I'm hanging out. I'm not plugged in with any other Jehovah Witness friends. I don't have buddies at school who feel the same way I do or being raised the same way I am. My friends are all of the world and having birthdays and having Christmas. And so it was right. Really exciting. I remember my first Halloween was like super exciting. Like
What'd you dress up as?
A friend of mine did dance, and so she had a bunch of dance costumes. So I think I just wore one of her dance costumes.
So you just dressed like you are,
right?
You typecast yourself.
I did, yeah. So
cosplayed yourself.
Yeah. So I did that, and we, and that was exciting. Get to go to my first Halloween party. Some sisters that we were friends with down the street, their mom always had a huge Halloween party every year, and so kind of getting to go to that was like, it was really cool. So I think we were kind of already starting to be allowed to hang out with and do more, like be exposed to more of that stuff than we were when we lived in Portland. And so right. I think that was it. So it wasn't like a shock factor. Like one day my parents just came home and said, we're not going back ever again. So, and it wasn't like,
right.
What?
Right.
It was kind of like this like progression of walking away from that.
And did you talked before about them saying you can't listen to this music, you can't do this. Did all that just go away at the same time?
Yeah, again, I think it was all in that season of just, and I don't know what was really going on like with my parents. Like, I don't know what was happening in their adult life because,
sure. Yeah, they're not going to share that with their kids.
Yeah, not at that age. And so,
how much do we share with our kids about our inner workings and all that kind of stuff?
Oh, everything. You go to work every day and we sit down and have a powwow every day.
You might. I
tell the kids, these are all the things Dad and I are fighting about.
Yeah.
I do feel like I am actually transparent with our kids about a lot of stuff.
Sure.
Our financial stuff right now that we've been going through, I think all of our kids know all of it.
Sure.
Where my parents didn't tell me anything until I'm an adult and I go back and I go, wow.
Well, because that affects them. They need to know why we're not able to do certain things.
Well, it affects them, but I want it to affect them. Like I want them to understand when our parents said credit cards are bad, they never really said why. Mm-hmm. And now I'm like, okay, kids, credit cards are bad, and I'm going to tell you why. And I want you to see the consequences of poor choices and bad planning. Right. I want you to see that.
My parents always told me why they were bad.
Well,
they just say they were too easy to use, and before you know it, you owe all this money. They're fun at first, right? But then it comes back to bite you in the butt.
But I think that's still just kind of a blanket thing to just say oh, well, this is, just like you'd be like, well, kids, drugs are bad. Just don't do them because you could end up a burnout on the street.
Right.
But then when you actually say do you see this person who's actually gone through these things and all the consequences and all the people that they hurt around, and you take it a step further than that. Yeah. I feel like I do that with our kids and take it a step further. So anyways, yeah. So my parents I don't really remember having those conversations. I mean, for all I know, we hadn't gone back to a Kingdom Hall for months and months and months before. Yeah. I just remember them saying, okay, kids, we're gonna celebrate Christmas this year. I remember that just being a thing, what? Oh, how exciting we are. So, I always joke, everybody else, nobody remembers their first Christmas, but I do.
Right.
I was there. Yeah. I remember it. I remember Santa came to our house and Santa, Who
was it, your uncle or something?
No, not like a Santa.
You mean presents were left under the tree?
We got presents, and Santa hand wrote a note and left one unwrapped gift for each of us under the tree with a handwritten note. And I got my first porcelain doll. And nice. Santa told me that I was so mature and I was old enough to have this nice doll. And that doll, I believe, Laura broke it.
Because she wasn't mature enough to have the doll.
She dropped it, and then I'm pretty sure it was Laura, and the porcelain doll's face got smashed. So, but yeah. So awesome. I remember that I remember my mom decorating. I remember her going out and decorating the tree with all red and white lights, red and white bows, red and white. It was just red and white only. And I remember my dad wouldn't call it Christmas. He would call it winter solstice. And that's how he labeled the boxes in the garage.
That is like your dad.
Yeah. So.
Love it.
So I don't think, he was as on board with all of that, but was just whatever, woman.
Well, he was probably on board with the leaving Jehovah Witness.
Yeah.
But maybe he wasn't on board with Santa and the
I'll say the commercialism of Christmas and everything. Right. And he was always the one that would always tell me whenever we would talk about Christmas and why we don't celebrate Christmas, and he'd be like, well, did you know that in December, Jesus wouldn't have been born in December?
Which is true.
Which it's true, but it doesn't mean that that's not a time that we set aside to commemorate that. Just because you don't know somebody's actual birthday doesn't mean you can't just take a day to celebrate the birth of them or whatever, right? So anyways, just whatever.
So then by the time you meet me, you're about 4 or 5 years out of that.
Yeah.
So what would you say your spiritual state was at that time? Still believing in God, or?
So I was probably I've always believed that in there being some kind of creator.
Right.
I don't think I ever went through a phase where I was like, God, there's no such thing as God. And I think partly because I think I just had that foundational I was born into believing these Bible stories were truth, right? So I believed in in Adam and Eve, but I would kind of question these things and be like, but I don't understand how dinosaurs fit into this. And then my mom would tell me the 7 days are not literal days, and she would try to tell me this whole thing. And so I think I kind of had a season of just not being able to make sense of everything, but just saying I don't know how it's real. I mean, I believed in evolution, but I also believed that there was a God, and so kind of a mix of that. But
progressive.
Yeah, but I don't think I ever really went through a time of not believing in God.
Right.
But maybe more of the whole idea of God just dropped us here on this rock and we're just left to fend for ourselves.
Yeah, not so much a personal God. Just
there was no
creator.
Yeah. So fast forward a few years after we met, we have our first child together. Mm-hmm. And actually I was pregnant with her. And had a good friend who was mentoring me through my pregnancy and early mom days. Right. And her dad was a pastor. Mm-hmm. And so she would take me to church with her.
Right. Which I was all for. Right. I mean, I was totally on board because back then I loved Christians back then. I thought it was great that you were doing that.
Yeah, that's a lie.
It's a lie on purpose, though.
So, I don't want anybody to take that out of context. That's why.
Right. No, yes. That was me being sarcastic. I hated that she went to church because I hated Christians, and yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to, becoming a mom, I realized I want my kid to have a belief in something. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take her to church because it's good for her.
Right.
And I think that's when I started letting those Jehovah Witnesses come to our house. Mm-hmm. I let them in. And I think I even got one of the Bible story books from them for a
the yellow one?
Yeah, I think. I could be wrong. I'm trying to remember.
You probably hid it from me because I don't remember any of that.
But I wanted something. I knew that there was something else, right? I knew that it was an important thing, but I just didn't really know why. I just thought, well, it's really good. Church is really good for kids. It's good for them to have good morals. We'll teach them good morals, and it's important to learn the Bible stories. Why is it important? I don't know, but it's important.
It just is.
They need to understand why, why this stuff happens. And so, so I just kind of had that mentality. So I would say I dabbled in the Christian church for a brief period of time because I thought it was good for them. And then I think when she told me that I should not live with you anymore during that time because we weren't married yet. And I was like, no, like that's dumb.
Yeah.
God will understand.
Right.
Because
we're already a family, whether we're legally married or not.
Yeah. So it was just.
And I'm not justifying that we weren't legally married and having a kid. I'm just saying that we were already a family unit, even if we weren't legally a family unit.
So that was kind of the early part of Alora's life. So before, maybe she was like around the time she was 2. Mm-hmm. And this friend was saying like, well, you guys aren't married. So, and that's not how God designed it. Like you guys should get married or just not live together anymore.
Right.
Or whatever. Like, she was trying to mentor me.
Sure.
Guide me the right way and help me.
And she knew the kind of guy I was then anyway. So she wasn't exactly.
She was probably like, get away.
She wasn't exactly a fan of me at that time. Yeah.
So then, you and I went through a really rough season for a while there. We came back together and then decided, I don't know at what point, how soon after, but I was like, hey, it's a great idea. Let's have another baby. And then I got pregnant and was like, wait a second. We should probably get married now.
Right.
I don't know what in my head thought it was a good idea to have a second baby before.
Right.
But
well, you wanted to get married the whole time.
Yeah. I never didn't want to get married.
Yeah. It was always me that was against the idea.
Yeah. So, anyways, so then we have Aiden. We get married. Aiden's born a few months later. And during my pregnancy is when you started reading your Bible. You had gone through some stuff personally.
Right.
Picked up your Bible and found comfort in reading the Bible and got saved somewhere in that period of time, which may have even been part of the reason why you decided it was a good idea to get married. I finally kind of tipped the scale on that. Maybe
I don't remember the time frame. I get lost in what happened when.
Yeah.
But it was all around the same time. So
yeah. So then Aiden's born and he's got a heart defect. Well, let's back it up. So a few weeks before he was born, we found a church, or you found a church that was really pretty on the inside.
Yeah.
You liked the palm trees.
That's right.
And Calvary Chapel became our home church.
Right. And
so anyways, I said, well, that's fine. I've been wanting, I want the kids to go to church anyways. So let's go.
Because even at that point, even though I professed to be a Christian, I was still leery of church.
Right.
Like I didn't want to go to church, even though you wanted to go to church. So that's why when I found this building, I was like, hey, I could probably do this place. So then I remember telling you, and you were all excited, like, yes.
Right. And again, the whole idea was that I just wanted my kids to go to church.
Right.
Because I thought, that's just what you do. And it was a good foundation for me in the first 10 years of my life to go to church.
Right.
I want my kids to go to church.
Sure.
So, so you found a church that you liked the way it looked. And so we started going.
Which is the totally right reason to choose a church.
Now we know why the paint color does matter.
That's right.
But so then Aiden was born and had a heart defect when he was born.
Right.
And so I remember going to church that he was born on a Monday or a Tuesday. And Sunday we went to church. He was like 6 days old when we went to church. I remember.
The first time we went to church?
The first time after he was born. We had gone several weeks before he was born.
Okay.
And we went that week. And I remember sitting in the cry room with him. Mm-hmm. And the sermon was on healing and how God heals through, God heals us through miracles and God heals us through, or God can heal you through death, right? Because, you would be healed of whatever earthly issues you're having.
Yeah.
And you'll be living with him in heaven and not have.
That's a pretty hardcore message to preach.
Well, because
really.
It really is because I think it's true. I think everybody thinks that we should have some earthly miracle, but sometimes that's not what
we got to trust in his plan over our own.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, so this is the sermon I'm having as I have a 6-day-old baby in my arms who I know has to have open heart surgery at 6 months old.
Right.
So I felt in that moment, God absolutely is real and he sees me where I am. He knows what I'm going through in this moment. So I sat in the cry room and I cried as you're supposed to.
Which is what the room is for. Yeah.
Usually I expect the infants to do the crying, but mom is doing the crying. But I wept. And immediately after that, I went out when they did the altar call after church and I went up and I was like, this is my story. And so 100% I say that was the day I was saved because I think I always knew there was a God. I always believed in something. I didn't know what it was, but I always believed in something. And like I said, I always said, church is good. Church is good for you. People who go to church are good people, which is not true, but it's, but for me, that was just kind of where I was. But that was the first moment in my life where I was like, God absolutely is real. And he told me exactly what I needed to hear in that moment to help me cope with all of these feelings I'm having, because.
So that sermon helped, like you thinking to yourself, he's either going to be healed physically or he's going to die. That was helpful to you.
Because I knew that no matter what happened, my baby's life was in God's hands.
Right.
Whatever that outcome is.
So it took the burden off of you in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it was because take God out of that picture and then I'm like, what if there's a bad surgeon? Like all of these what ifs, right? What if he doesn't make it? What if this happens? What if this? What if? And you just think about all these outcomes and all of these things and decisions you have to make.
Right.
Well, am I making the right decision? Do I do it sooner? Do I do it later? Do I whatever? And
that's hard.
Yeah. And in that moment when I heard that sermon, to just say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Right.
God's going to heal my baby physically through surgery or through a miracle or through death. But God is going to heal my baby and he is going to be fine at the end of the day or the end of the life, he's going to be healed. He'll be healed with his creator or he'll be healed here on earth with me. And so Aiden is, every time I've had problems with Aiden over the years, 100% I say, no matter what you are going through in your life, your depression and your issues and your anger, whatever it is he's going through, I always remind him, you are here because you are my testimony. I wasn't going through a drug addiction and I wasn't going through a divorce and I wasn't going through a personal hard time, but I was going through a struggle with you, and God used you to tell me what I needed to hear in that moment. And so Aiden is my walking, talking, living, breathing testimony. So
what does he say when you tell him that?
Well, I don't know.
Mom.
Yeah. probably something, probably something sarcastic.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But,
okay.
Anyways, so that's how I came to know the Lord. And so I've been through seasons of, closely walking with the Lord and seasons of not, of struggling. I think seasons of, self-doubt and, just questioning, but never questioning whether or not he's real and he's there, right? That never goes away. I always feel like I come back to that foundational. I've always known. I just didn't know I didn't know who he was and how to talk to him.
Sure.
And so it took me 20 years to get there, but then, 21 years to get there. But, so even now, these last 20 some years, to say I have, wow, I just realized it's been been saved as long as I've not been saved. Just did my math.
Oh.
I just reached my halfway point.
Well, that doesn't make sense because earlier you said you were still 29.
Yeah. I've been a Christian for 8 years. But yeah, so no matter what else I'm going through, I still kind of have that, that foundational, that grasp is still there.
Right.
I just feel some days I feel I'm flailing about a little bit more, and struggling with a lot of super lately I've been struggling with letting the world in. I keep thinking I really, really, really need to just go on an Instagram and Facebook.
Fast.
So I need a social media. I need to cut it off. Whether it's a week, a month, a year, I don't know, or forever.
Right.
Because I'm falling into the trap of like keeping up with the Joneses kind of idea, you know, that everything everybody else has. I'm like, my super number one sin right now is covetousness. I want what everybody has.
Right.
And you can see that in our, you know, the last few years of our lifestyle changes and things like that. And that's not helping me grow closer to the Lord. No. It's putting me away from it, because I'm seeking out comfort and satisfaction in the things that the world can provide for me. But, you know, like Ecclesiastes says.
That's what I was going to say. Did the sermon this morning hit you? Because
this whole book is going to hit me. This whole book is going to hit me because, you know, when he starts talking about how life is fleeting and life is a vapor, and we're always trying to grab onto these things that we can't grab onto. And then today just talk about, you know, and how it basically, what did he say today? Like, I wrote something down in my notes. But just the whole idea, like today I walked out going, okay, well, I struggle with depression. And today it was kind of like, what does it even matter? It's all, nobody's going to remember you tomorrow anyway. It's you know, the most uplifting sermon we've had.
Right.
And so I, you know, it's like, as someone who struggles with depression, I'm kind of like, really? Like, you're supposed to be preaching messages of hope.
But it's almost uplifting in a sense, kind of similar to what you were saying about getting the answered prayer about Aiden. Because yes, it sounds harsh to say it that way, but it almost takes the burden off of you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why are you so worried about stuff?
Right.
You know, no one's going to remember you anyway.
Well, and I think, so as I was saying, like, kind of today's sermon was heavy in a sense, right? Like, what does it all really matter? Because, and I'm like, okay, well, I can look forward to just show me how to get back to letting God be that person for me instead of the things of the world that I keep reaching for and hoping for. And, you know, so I think I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. So what kind of, like, when you go through the struggles and you say you keep going back to, you know, knowing and believing that there's a God and not, I mean, it's farther than before. Like, you just say, I just believe there's a creator. Obviously now you know and believe that there's not only a God and a creator, but one that loves you and cares about you and is involved in your life on a day-to-day. Even when you maybe don't feel him, or you don't necessarily feel in control of anything. Like you said, you're out of control sometimes. So what is it specifically that would kind of make you like, what was it that would solidify that for you? Like when you're going through those times, and is it just like an inner knowing that you already just know this, or is there something like?
I think that it's kind of both. I think, you know, it just really deep down, I know I'm still tethered, right? If that is like a good visual, but like
tethered to
God, right? So like I know he's there, but like I can't always see him, but I have to. I know you
can never see him, right?
Well, but you know what I mean. Like
I'll say, if you can see him, you got to teach me your secret, because
but I mean, okay, so like a good like visual, like it's darkness, right? I feel like I go through seasons of feeling like I'm surrounded by darkness, but I know that I have that safety rope, and I can feel that safety rope, and I know it's there. I can't see or feel anything else around me,
right?
Because it's darkness, and it just feels this heavy darkness sometimes. But I know that my safety is still there. I can feel that.
You can't see who's holding the other end of the rope.
Right. I know who's at the end of the other end of the rope.
Right.
And it's scary when you can't see it, and that's where like kind of like that trust comes in. And I know that when he'll pull me out of it, I won't be there forever.
Right.
And I know that's there. And I think for me, it's so part of it is just knowing, but then the other part of it is I'm still seeing him do things all the time, right? Like I'm still, maybe not as often because I'm in a season of life where I feel like there's just a lot more darkness. I feel lost all the time. I feel, you know, I do. I feel like I have no sense of purpose. I'm struggling with a lot of things over the last few years. But knowing that I still see little things along the way when I'm looking for them, right? Like when I'm open to seeing those things, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I see God orchestrating in this thing, or leading me back to this thing, or putting this person in my life, or this conversation, or whatever it is. Because I still meet somebody who will say something to me, and I'm like, wow, I'm like literally feeling that exact same thing. And I know this is not a person I normally talk to.
Right.
But now they're in my God has put them in my path. so that we could have this conversation at this exact moment in time when I needed to hear it the most, right?
Sure.
Absolutely. So that's where I still see God moving in my life and doing things. Even when I'm not feeling like I'm super connected to God, I can't see him or whatever. Like I feel like I'm not hearing him. There's too much darkness, too much distance, but he's still like leading me down those pathways and putting those people in my life and moving still.
And do you think that cloud of darkness is made up of what you were talking about before, like the worldly stuff that you're kind of reaching for instead of God? Like you feel like the more that we do that, the more that cloud darkens, and then
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's putting that distance between. It's more of like that darkness comes from walking away from the light, right? Mm-hmm. You're in the light, it's bright, it's happy, it's whatever. Mm-hmm. And you start walking further away from that light and the darkness gets darker. And I think that's where I'm at. I'm like, I've kind of put too many things between me and the Lord in my life, whether it's I'm filling my spare time with all of these things that I don't need to fill, and all of this worldliness and all of this like worldly needs and wants, well, these things. And I think it took that first little bit to kind of be like, well, I'm just not happy right now. And then so you kind of have this gap. Mm-hmm. I don't know, I'm feeling disconnected from the Lord. And the more stuff I try to fill in there, the more disconnected I get from him. Yeah. And so I just feel like this last year I've been just trying to get that back and close that gap. Mm-hmm. But I just feel like I've been unraveling for so long that it's harder. Yeah. So. And
when do you think that kind of started though? Like the unraveling that you're talking about? So like years and years and years, or was it like?
It's hard to say. Years. Yeah. I would say years. Okay. I would say sometime. I don't know. I feel like when Addison and Asher were little, and just sometime in that season, I think we were in a place and we weren't as connected to a community of people. We talked about that, having that community of friends. Right. And we were less connected to them. And so I didn't feel like I had that same level of support and I just keep saying community. Like I just didn't have my tribe anymore. Right. I didn't have like-minded people with me. We had people we knew from church. We had friends, people who at the time I would consider a friend. Right. But it wasn't the same. Mm-hmm. And I felt like there was a season of time where I was more involved in studies and small groups and being able to pray, feel like having people in my life that I felt I could sit and I could pray for or ask for prayer like from or whatever, and it didn't feel awkward. And now I feel like it's gotten to this point where I'm almost so out of practice with things that it starts to feel
foreign.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't feel foreign. It should be like conversing with the Lord should be like conversing with you. Right. Which feels awkward and foreign all the time because we don't do it enough, right? Right. But serious, like just, if it's conversations you're having regularly, it doesn't feel so awkward. But when you try to pick up the phone after 10 years and talk to somebody, just... Yeah.
Hey, God, how's it going?
Right. So...
what have you been up to?
And I'm not saying that I haven't prayed, but it just doesn't feel as... In those first, 10 years of my walk with the Lord, like... It was different. Of course, it's new, too. So when something's new, it's, there's this exciting... There's that honeymoon phase of, like... Right. Of a new relationship. And so it was exciting, and it was just learning so much about myself and about him and about there was a lot of that. And then I went through the season and I don't know if we had not changed churches at the time, I don't know if it would have been the same, if I still would have gone through that same struggle of just that 7-year itch of, I need a break. I need, like they always say marriages go through that every 7 years. Mm-hmm. And you go through rough patches and it's whatever. And so I feel like maybe that would have still happened. It could have been a combination of both, the perfect storm. But yeah, so just kind of whether it was that or not that, I don't know. But
nice. But we're at the end. Unless you got anything else you want to throw out there.
No, I had this plan of like having a bunch of questions to ask you, but I think that's just another podcast for another time.
It must be. We'll have to do it again. Have you back. The guest that everybody's been asking for finally shows up, and then she's like, we'll do a second one. You heard it here. You heard it here. She's wanting to do a second one.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks.
Sure. My pleasure.
Yeah, you're my favorite.
I'm good. I hope so. I'm sure you have a couple of other guests that might be jealous if you said I was your favorite guest.
Well, that's all right. I don't mind. I can deal with it.
Thank you so much for listening to this final episode of Season 2 with this really extra special guest star. As Ryan mentioned before, he's going to be releasing a few bonus episodes over the next few weeks, hopefully keep you occupied until Season 3 comes back in the fall. And for any feedback, he'd really appreciate some feedback. Like, really, really appreciate some feedback. Send him an email, make a comment, but please, please, please send him some feedback. Anything will do. Please?
Okay, so what I'm still lost here. I don't know what I'm specifically supposed to say. Just what are you doing? Who are you talking to?
Yeah.
And then you're going to go from there?
No, that's where we cut off.
Oh, that's the end of it.
That's the end. I say all the stuff as if you're outside making the chai, fixing the drinks, okay?
All right. Close the door.
Is this thing recording? Okay. Welcome back to the Why Can't We Talk About This podcast. Before we get to our special guest today, I want to... What?
It's the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast.
Oh. You're right. I wrote down the wrong one. Thanks a lot, babe.
Sorry.
You're right. Have you there?
I didn't want to let you keep going on that if that's not a problem. So.
Right. Is this thing on? Welcome back to the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast. Before we get to today's special guest, I want to go on a few rants. You know what drives me crazy? People who go on rants and people who have unrinsed chai mugs that never get cleaned. There's always those people who constantly have loud music playing, whether it's in the car or while they take a shower, all the time. And I especially can't stand those people that have conversations that they insist on recording for a podcast.
Oh, that's where I come in?
Yeah.
Okay, so say that last part again.
And then there's always those people that have conversations that they insist on recording for a podcast.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
You're talking to yourself?
That's it.
Okay.
And then you just bust into the theme song.
All right.
Or however you do it.
I like it. That was short.
Told you. Do you always clear your throat to make sure it's working?
Or I'll tap on it, or I'll sing I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas.
Well, it's funny because every time you push record, you immediately go.
Yeah.
Every time. You do it when we sit down to record too. It's a dog. Outside. The dog.
Dork, that's not what I'm talking about. Do you want me to stay in here while you do it?
I don't care. It's recording right now?
Yeah, it's going.
Thank you so much for listening to this final episode of Season 2. As mentioned, I will be releasing a few... Do you want me to say I will, or do you want me to say he will? Ryan will? We will?
Or as I mentioned, or as Ryan previously mentioned...
Okay.
He will be releasing. You want to change it?
No, I can do it.
Okay.
Are you happy with that one? Will that work?
Yes.